so much for inviting me tonight to update you on some of the great things that are happening at Norris, and some things that we may need some help with. Our current priorities and activities. For many years, we've tried to institute a multi-tiered system of support for all students so that they get the help they need in reading and math prior to being identified for special ed services. This year is the first time that we are able to support all students in K-3 who need reading support. I have reassigned my 2 reading interventionists to focus only on those K-3 students. We have an interim assessment called FastBridge, so we're using that 3 times a year to identify those students who need Tier 2 interventions. And then our classroom teachers in K-3 are also differentiating instruction for those students. We've worked really hard to analyze this data and figure out what students need. I don't think that it wasn't anything new that was in the budget, because I had, $600,000 in budget cuts last year, but it was more about reorganizing and only focusing on K-3 instead of going spread thin K-6. We are focusing deep on K-3. So happy about that and hoping to continue it in the future. This year we also purchased a new reading curriculum for K-5, and the name of it is Open Court, and we are moving from the balanced literacy program to a more scientifically based, the science of reading program. So students are learning a lot in the younger grades on phonemic awareness, phonics, and this is a shift that the country is basically going in right now, going from a balanced literacy approach to this science of reading approach. We had studied some different social emotional curriculums over a year, and we came up with second step for our social emotional curriculum. It was a committee of about 6 people who had looked at several different programs that we wanted to institute, and then COVID happened. So our implementation of it last year was a little slow, but we are in full gear this year. Students are learning about empathy, perspective taking, processing emotions, understanding and resolving conflicts, and building positive relationships. And I feel like we've never needed it more than now. We are finding, as many people are, that students, because of the pandemic and not being in school full-time the whole time, some students were learning at home as well. Other students were, half at school and half at home. We have lost some of our social emotional skills that we had started to build in kindergarten. So we're trying to support all students by using this program. Some of the things that we're doing to prevent bullying at school is my new assistant principal, Mrs. Lukasiewicz, who could not be here tonight. She has visited all classes in grades 4 through 6 to show bullying videos and have discussions with students about bullying, how to respond to bullying, or what it feels like to be bullied, what to do if you see bullying happen, and what not to do, and how to report it to a teacher. She's doing a great job. We used to only focus on 5th grade for some reason, and this year we expanded it to 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Some of the health and safety things that we're continue to practice, per DESE mandate, the Department of Ed, the school committee policy, students and staff are wearing masks inside the building except while eating and drinking or during a mask break. So we continue to wear masks, as you know. I'm probably not telling you anything new. Our pooled testing program began on Tuesday, November 30th last week. We had we had a few positive cases last week, and a couple did show up in the pooled testing. So students were able to get retested and go back to class, or if we found a student that was positive, they had to go home and quarantine and get a PCR test. And then our test and stay program also began, which helps us keep kids in school when they're identified as close contacts, if there's a positive case in school. So if a student is named positive in school, those close contacts can be immediately tested, and if they're negative, they can stay in school, which has been really good. Our school nurses have just gone above and beyond our expectations during this pandemic, and I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out. They've been doing contact tracing and family support because many families still, need help and have questions when that phone call comes in that, your child has tested positive. So they continue to work after school on weekends. They volunteered for our vaccine clinic that we had a few weeks ago, and every weekend it seems we get an email from a parent who says, oh, my child just tested positive, what do I do? So they've been in contact with Sharon Hart, and she does a great job too. But, families are very comfortable with our school nurses to help guide them along the way. This year, we have a few new staff members due to retirements or resignations. 4 teachers, art, music, ELL, which is the English language learner teacher for students who haven't come to this country not speaking English, and special education. We have a new assistant principal, and I just hired a part-time math interventionist who will begin January 3rd. So this was something I had asked for in the budget for a full-time math interventionist to support those kids in K-3, just like I am with reading. But unfortunately, we had to cut it to a part-time position. I could only fund a half-time position, and she begins, like I said, January 3rd. Some of the good things that are happening in the future months are we have our new music teacher, Mrs. LaFond, will be posting a winter concert, which will be online, and this will be mid-January. So she's starting to videotape students doing the great things that they do in music, and she's going to put it together as a concert for parents, and she'll post that online. The PTO is planning a springtime bazaar. Not sure if that will be outside or inside, but we're hopeful that it will happen. In conjunction with the Southampton Police Department, we're planning a reunification drill sometime in May. The National Assessment of Educational Progress is going to be conducting testing it's national testing, and it will happen at Norris for any students who are 9 years old. So could be a few 3rd graders, but mostly 4th graders. It's, like I said, national, and they get tested in reading and math, and then we receive results on how we compare nationally to other students like ours. Girls on the Run, which had a fall team from Norris. They have teams throughout Pioneer Valley, which helps girls in grades 3 through 5 with some social emotional things, kind of building up self-esteem in girls, which is really great to do. They had their final 5K a few weeks ago at the Reservation Holyoke. I can't think of the name of it, Ashley Reservoir. They live right there. They will have another team this spring. And then some of our budget planning, we haven't started to develop the budget for next year. I know that they take care of the regional schools usually first, but some things that we're thinking about. In order to continue to support this multi-tiered system of support for all students, we will need to continue to fund the 2 reading specialists that we currently have for K-3. We will need an additional funding for reading support in grades 4 through 6. We have this part-time math interventionist for K-3, and the position will need to be funded full-time to begin to support all students in math. Looking at funding a program for our intensive special needs students, we currently have 16 students identified as autistic and with behavioral challenges, and although not all students need the same level of support, we do not have dedicated staff members or funding to support the needs of all students. So a few years ago, we were successful in moving some money around to open up the language-based learning classroom for students that had reading difficulties. And since that time, we have not sent one student out that has a reading disability to go to a school like White Oak, and it has saved us lots of money. We want to do the same thing with our students who have autism or are on the spectrum or have trauma or behavioral issues, because we're finding that the needs are so different and yet they run deep, so we need specifically designed instruction and support for those students to prevent them from going out. Currently, we have 3 students over the last few years that have gone out for social emotional type of disabilities that cost a lot of money. So say it's $60,000 to $70,000 per kiddo, we might need 3 staff members that will prevent students from going out to other programs, and we can keep them in-house. And we know we can do it. We just need the funding to do it. An additional part-time school adjustment counselor to support students' social, emotional, and health needs. And we will also be asking, of course, to fund the library so that I can open up the library again at Norris. I know our own town library is having difficulties, and it's just a shame that the students are not able to visit our school library. I did think about volunteers. I talked to a couple of the volunteers that worked previously in the library, but with 470 students attending, you can imagine if students were to take out books, the amount of time it takes to shelve books, keep the books intact, keep the system consistent. It's not something that I don't think a volunteer could actually run the library. We also want to educate children in the library, not just have them take books out and bring books back. Okay.
Very good.
I was able to submit that ahead of time, so I don't know if you have any questions.
Very helpful, thank you.
No, it's very, very, very helpful, yeah. Does anybody have some questions? I know I've got a couple, but go ahead if you've got, yeah. Ready? Go ahead.
Yeah, that was really helpful, and it's good. Can we, do you have data on the language-based learning program and the effectiveness? I think that will
Sure.
really help in terms of funding, like how many students participated, and therefore how much was saved based on the out-of-district placements and such?
Okay. Now, are you speaking of the program I already have that
Yeah,
has
the one that
prevented
was,
students?
the one that
Okay.
was put in place a
Sure.
couple of years ago?
A few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because that was
Sure.
a big argument, right? To help us try to save some money about not needing
Right.
to send kids
I
out.
just think that will go a long way in terms of the special services for social, emotional, behavioral, and also the math and continued funding, just to be able to prove that they were effective and they did
Okay.
what they were intended to do.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I have a number of district questions, but I just wanted to say, is the parking situation going better, or what's happening with that?
I have not received one complaint this year at all about the line.
Okay, good.
We have more kids on the bus. That's what helped. More families are sending their students on the bus, which
Oh,
has
that's
decreased the
really
amount
good.
of parent pickups and parent drop-offs.
Yeah,
And sometimes when I'm running a little late, I might come down Pomeroy Meadow Road at about 8:27, and there's probably 2 cars in line, whereas last year, I think they started lining up about 8:15 in the morning, and the
Yeah.
buses were trying to go by the cars, so
Okay,
to
good.
me, it's much better, but I haven't heard that it
Okay.
wasn't, so
No, that's a good
Okay,
thing.
good.
if anyone has problems, they should definitely contact me.
Probably a good sign. Francine, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is there any collaborative relationship among the 5 elementary schools where if they have specializations, like ours would be language-based learning and hopefully autistic kids sometime in the future, if they have programs that some of our kids could benefit from, that maybe we could accept their children for our language-based
Right.
and send to their, but not at this $60,000 or $70,000 rate?
Right, we have had discussions about that. I think that what we would do is start small and only start with Norris, but the thought would be that in the future, we would be able to accept students tuition-based from other schools in the district.
Okay.
Right now, I think the incidence of those students in those schools is very low, and they're able to support those students at their schools. I don't know if anybody
Okay.
has any other, but that's what we've discussed.
Okay.
Good. Got a couple. Just, you mentioned early on the second step, social emotional curriculum at every grade level. Are you able to see yet any difference? And I guess I'm wondering, are the kinds of things that you're seeing through that curriculum or the implementation of it, is there a difference from what you're seeing at the first grade level versus the sixth grade level in terms of stresses and issues that kids are having to deal
I
with?
think the stresses in the younger grades are students being able to regulate themselves. So last year when we were, we all like to say that only half the kids were there last year, but the younger kids, K to 2, were full in way before everybody else was. But so many kids, I think, were remote learning or homeschooled last year that the classroom sizes were much smaller. So students in the younger grades, we were not seeing the types of behaviors that we're seeing this year, with them being able to manage their frustrations, emotions, or their ability to wait their turn, or to express themselves about how they're feeling. So this program really does work on, how do I express myself when I'm feeling sad, or when I have anger, or how do I read your face when you look mad, and what's my response? So that's been really good. The older kids, we haven't seen a huge, number of students in the older grades who are like the younger students. And what I didn't report on, because it's so brand new that I didn't really want to talk about it yet, was the other thing Mrs. Lukaszowicz is doing is going into 6th grade and having discussions with the class about growth mindset, being able to identify, where do you want to go and how are you going to get there, and thinking positively about your next steps and things like that. And we don't have any data to say this stuff is working yet, but with Second Step, we're trying to take a whole school approach where normally part of the program is having school-wide assemblies where the topic or the theme of the month might be empathy. And we would role play or have teachers role play to the kids. And then when the kids are in class, the teachers are also going over these things. We're not able to have school-wide assemblies right now because it's not safe, but Mrs. Lukaszowicz and I, during our morning messages, every morning when we salute the flag, we give a morning message about the Second Step program, whatever the topic of the week is. And the teachers have given us feedback that it's very helpful that we are aligned with them and what they're talking about in the classroom. We're saying the same thing over the intercom on how to resolve a conflict with your friend today, or make sure you look at your friend's face before you respond to see how they might be feeling, things like that.
Very interesting, yeah. And I guess, just totally unrelated in a way, but you mentioned the mobile vaccination clinic. How well attended was that?
Oh, we discovered after it started that they actually didn't have enough vaccinations for the amount of people that showed up, so it was a glitch. And we're hoping for a smooth Thursday this week when we have the second dose coming for those students that had their first dose last time.
Okay.
I don't have a number for you how well attended it
Was
was.
that from the Northampton Health Department?
I'd have to look.
It was
I don't think so.
It was the Vax
It's the
bus or
Vax
something.
bus,
I'd seen it
and I
advertised somewhere.
don't know the name of the people that have done it.
But either, yeah.
It's not the same that was in Williamsburg. They're two different. We couldn't get the same people to come to us.
Okay, okay.
Chris, are you done? I just thought of another question.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to put a shout out to the nurses as an RN myself. I just want to say that the nurses in all schools have
Yeah.
done a phenomenal job, and I just wanted to put a shout out to them.
Thank
I
you.
know that I've been volunteering, giving vaccines at the Northampton Health Department, and they are going up to Hampshire Regional, I believe, this week, I think. So I think it requires pre-registration, so I don't know if that was an issue on the mobile thing, but anyway. Are there still students that are remote?
No,
Everyone's in
remote is
person?
not an option this year.
It's not even an option
We have
at
a
all?
couple homeschool students.
Okay.
But not remote, yeah.
Did anybody decide to homeschool because,
Yes,
intentionally because of the pandemic?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Until there was a vaccine, until their child, their child could get the vaccine, yep.
Okay.
But yes, the nurses have, and my nurses are really great and they don't complain. And so sometimes it's the ones that are the quietest that don't get the recognition because they're all set and I don't have to worry about them. But I've tried to remind myself to stop and thank them because when those emails and text messages start on the weekend, their family stops. Everything stops in their life because they feel they have an obligation and a duty to help the students and families of Norris, and I appreciate them so much.
Yeah, they're primarily the medical person in the building, and I know when I used to sub there, there were adults that came in and kids, and it's scary sometimes. There's
Yep.
a lot of complexity.
Now, are the nurses back to full-time yet, or not?
No,
Not yet?
0.8, 0.9,
Okay.
0.9.
They each have-
They each work 4.5 days.
Even with the additional funds that we appropriated, that
I
adjustment
don't
hasn't
know
been
if those monies
changed?
were appropriated yet.
I have not gotten word yet. I have reached out, but I have not heard back that the adjustment will be in place
Okay.
as of yet.
Very good deal.
Was that CARES Act?
Yep.
Yeah, it should have been.
Excellent.
So is there?
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll work on that. That should be, as far as I know, we've approved it at our level here, so we will
All right.
close the loop on that. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right. Could we then move on to, let's see, Hampshire Regional. Lauren? Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight.
Hi. Yeah, just introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Lauren Holtz. I'm the interim principal at Hampshire Regional. So I will kind of go the same way as Eliza did and walk you through, and then any questions that you guys have. So I'm pleased to report that our school council has met monthly so far this fall, and we developed our school improvement plan for this year. And last night, our school committee approved that plan. And so it has 4 overarching goals around, the first one is around educating the whole child. The second one is about safety, physical safety, COVID, school culture, mental health types of safety. The third one around curriculum and instruction. And then the fourth one, equity and inclusion. We are really focusing right now at school around student mental health and school culture, which really go hand in hand. We're finding our kids are struggling more than ever right now with mental health, and just in very, very intense ways that we've never experienced before. So just yesterday, we had a guest speaker come in, and so we did 2 presentations, one for the middle school, one for the high school. Very similar, but slightly different for the different ages, and that was very well received. Today, students took a quick survey just to give us their feedback and also to let us know if they, based on that presentation, if they feel like they need extra mental health support or if they have friends who they're worried about. So we're pretty happy that we were able to do that and get some data from that. School culture. So we are kicking off a student council event around rebuilding the Raiders and really just focusing on school spirit and getting our school culture and climate back up to what it used to be before school shut down and before things got really complicated. And so I'm excited about that. That's happening very soon. Our winter athletics just recently started, and our boys and girls basketball teams kick off this Friday at UMass. So it's exciting to be back to some type of normalcy around athletics with masks on indoors. Health and safety. So right now, our combined school population, 77% of our combined school population is vaccinated. So that includes all part-time, full-time staff members, coaches, and all students. Like Eliza said, we are all wearing masks at school still. We have mask breaks built into the day. And it can be challenging, but students, they understand at this point and generally are pretty compliant and respectful of that. Echoing the nurses at Norris, our nurses are doing a wonderful, wonderful job, and they just spend many extra hours doing all of this contact tracing. So very much appreciated. We're doing test and stay and symptomatic testing at Hampshire. And because so many of our students are vaccinated, we're not finding that it's been really useful, but for a pretty limited number of kids, because our kids who are vaccinated don't have to follow all of these close contact protocols. And so we just have a lot fewer close contacts than the elementary level might. Some personnel updates for this year. We had 25 new staff members. We had a lot of paras who moved on to teaching roles, which is exciting for them, but hard to fill those positions. And so we had eight new paras this year, 3 custodians, 8 classroom teachers in a variety of departments, new principal, high school assistant principal, director of student activities, high school counselor, adjustment counselor, and an athletic trainer. So quite a few new faces around the school. We have some really exciting events coming up, and I'll highlight just a couple for you. So we're really excited to be offering a parents' night for 5th and 6th graders in the district, 5th and 6th grade parents and guardians in the district. We feel like we want to start to reach out as the kids are a little bit younger before they start to think about school choice or charter schools, and we feel like if they can really hear some of the exciting things that we're doing at Hampshire, they'll get excited at a younger age, and that we'll be able to keep more of them, which would be really great. And then the other thing to highlight is that this is the 50th year for Hampshire Regional, and so we are throwing a big birthday party in the spring, and I'm hoping for beautiful weather that day, but we're really excited for that. So that will be in May. In terms of a few things that I'm looking for next year in our budget, like I mentioned in the beginning, we are in need of another adjustment counselor right now. And so right now at Hampshire, we have 2 adjustment counselors, and their caseloads are huge because of the number of students who are just really struggling and the intensity of those issues. And so it would be really great to get an additional counselor to support those students. Another increased cost for us is going to be graduation. So last year, you may know that we did graduation for the first time in a long time at Hampshire outdoors, but along with that comes an increased cost due to the sound and the stage and lots of rentals. We live streamed it, which seemed to be very, very popular and appreciated. a police detail, and custodian overtime. And so I think some people think it would be cheaper to do it on campus, and it's not. There's definitely a cost associated with that. And then my third budget request would be to incorporate another Tier 2 intervention teacher at Hampshire. 2 years ago, we took one of our licensed special ed teachers and we moved her into this type of role to really meet the needs of some of our students who are not on IEPs who needed additional intervention. And so that's been great. She teaches 6 classes a day, and really she's supporting kids with a variety of needs, some with 504 plans and some regular education, around academic support, organizational support, and other executive functioning support. It would be great to be able to have another one of those teachers because our students could really benefit from it, particularly if we could have that person specialize in some reading support for students who don't currently access it because they don't have IEPs. So those are 3 of the priorities that I am looking at for next year.
Great. Good, thank you for
Any
that.
questions?
Yeah, thanks, yeah. Questions, anybody? Yeah, Rini, go ahead.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, how are you?
I'm good. Lauren, I have a question. Can you explain what you mentioned about Director of Student Activities? Can you just explain what that person does and who they report to?
Sure. The Director of Student Activities, he is our athletic director, and so he manages all of the athletics, and then in addition, he manages all of the extracurricular activities.
Oh, okay.
And that position, I want to say it was created maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and before that, it was really just a part-time athletic director who was also a teacher. And so this position, he runs all of the extracurriculars and athletics for the whole building, and he reports directly to me.
Okay. Thanks.
I just have one. When you mentioned your goals, your 4 goals, the first one about actively and intentionally develop and review systems to support the whole child, is that something that has been part of the ongoing goals and it's now just moved up to number 1 priority, or are these not in any particular order of?
They're not in any particular order, although I would say that probably belongs at the top right now, but they were not written to be in any order.
So this is something that's been kind of an ongoing program. It's nothing new specifically due to COVID and distance learning and all that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah, so that first goal, it's been a goal for some years with different action steps underneath it. I think right now it's our focus, but it's been there for quite some time in different iterations.
Okay, great, thanks. Anybody else? Sure? No?
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Laura.
you.
Thank you.
All right, okay. And next, I think we have our district superintendent, Diana.
Good evening, everybody. I am Deanna Bonneville, Superintendent of Schools, and as you know, I just started this position in July, and so far, so good. It's been very wonderful to be here. And I thought tonight I would share with you some of our district goals and some of our big district priorities, which pretty much match what Eliza and Lauren had said. And as both principals gave a shout out to the nurses, I would like to give a shout out to the administrative team, the principals, and Stephanie Foss, our nursing director. Lauren, Thanksgiving weekend, was making contact trace calls, which really goes above and beyond the call of duty. So I appreciate everything my administrators have done. And Bobby's here, which is wonderful. I don't know what I would do without them. They've been wonderfully supportive. But now that we've been talking about COVID for the last year and a half, I'd like to turn the focus back to teaching and learning. So I've spent quite a bit of time in the classrooms already. I try to visit each school at least twice a month and do classroom observations with the principals. And I never knew I loved pre-K so much. That is like my favorite stop. Bam, I head there. That's my first stop in every building. I was a high school teacher, so I find that fascinating. So some of the goals that we are working on, I just gave you 4. We have more, but we're working on a district improvement plan. So these will be the big goals that we have. As Eliza had made mention to, Nancy Parlaklash, the special ed director, and I are working to determine if we can establish a viable framework to implement a district-wide program to support behavioral needs and autistic students. So this is kind of a two-pronged approach. As Elisa had said, there's 16 students at Norris, and I think we could do a better job of meeting their needs as well. And my line of thinking is, at some point, you're going to have to pay. So either you pay now at an early age with early interventions, or if their needs are not being met, they're going to be out of district at a later date, and it's going to cost a lot more money. And as with your conversation with Eliza, our goal is to first establish a successful program at Norris as a pilot program, and then if the other districts in Hampshire Regional need to school choice somebody in, that would be our first step. And our second step is to open it up for like 45-day placements for other districts, which could be a really potentially a wonderful revenue source for our school. And as far as the behavioral needs do, there is a need for therapeutic classrooms, and I think we might start that first at the high school. We're just in initial discussions about that, but that's also to prevent high school dropouts. And Lauren had mentioned social emotional needs, so we really want to address those needs that have gone unmet so far. I'm not sure how many students we would service at the high school, or of the 16 autistic kids, I'm not sure of where they fall in the range of how we're going to service them, but if you look at the cost that we pay to support them now, we hire out of district with certain agencies where we pay a lot of money for them to come to our school, behavioral analysts and technicians, and we can do that ourselves. And train paras to do the technician part, so we can perhaps pay them a couple more dollars an hour versus a lot more through an independent company. So that's one of the big goals that we're working on this year. I'd given you my entry plan, one of the documents that I submitted, and in it I talk about being in the new superintendent induction program, and one of the things that we're working on is to develop a 3-year district strategic plan. So I'm going to spend this year looking at policies, procedures, data, meeting with different people and constituents and stakeholders and school committee members to really identify what our strengths and weaknesses are as a district. And then the district strategic plan would really address those needs and come up with effective strategies and ways that we can assess the program. And that would be done, that's just not a Deanna Bonneville document. That's a district-wide document with input from all constituents as well. I've been meeting with the administrative leadership team every week, and it's been wonderful. And I really think that it's done wonders to strengthen our cohesive district culture and improving our communication. And as Francine had mentioned, just as far as sharing resources and having those conversations, although each school system is definitely their own independent district, we could really rally and share our resources and help each other. So it's been great. We meet every week for a couple of hours. We talk about curriculum, a lot of COVID things about policies and procedures. We brainstorm ideas of problems of practice if somebody's having a difficult time with something. But it's been great, the sharing of ideas. So we hope to be more collaborative and more unified. Just as far as Fast Bridges is an assessment tool that's not used in every school. So we would like to do that so we can really look at data, so when students enter middle school, we can clearly identify what our strengths and areas of challenges are. And as both principals stated, social emotional welfare of students. So far we've been doing COVID safety student checks, so that's more than just pool testing. That's test and stay in the symptomatic testing. And we've been looking at various protocols and developing policies that safeguard our students about COVID. But social emotional learning curriculum across the board is used because of all the trauma from last year. So not only are we looking at isolation that students had from last year, but there's a lot of family trauma as well. And I've noticed over the years, especially in the last 5-10 years, everywhere, the needs of students is growing, but we're not accommodating those needs. And I find that guidance counselors and school adjustment counselors are spending more and more time meeting with students, especially regular education students, where it's not written into their service plans. So some of the financial priorities for FY23, Open Court is the new reading program that Eliza had mentioned, and which is based on the science of reading. Teachers do not have much professional development in this. Their days are limited in the number of how many professional development days they have. And I think Kate Mesmer and Eliza have been working to try to get a date. But if we're going to have all this money put in for a new curriculum, you need to have the professional development as well. So, and due to the budget constraints, the interventions were not all in place that we would have hoped. As Eliza said, there was a K through 3 focus for interventions, which really leaves grades 4 through 6 floundering a little bit. And while this year we definitely use ESSER funds to cover those gaps, we really need more reading interventionists next year to fully meet student needs, as well as a math interventionist. And if you look at MCAS data, I'd like to see those scores higher at Norris. And if you think about some of the other elementary schools where they have 100 students, they have the same amount of interventionists as Norris does. And I just find that inequitable, and I hope that we can remedy that for our students as well. The high school needs another Tier 2 interventionist for non-special ed students. And we just talked about the autism program. I'm not sure what that's going to cost. So we are meeting this week. I've been meeting with Nancy about this, and we do have a little advisory group that we're going to start meeting next week, and hope to meet every couple of weeks so we can look at programming and visit different schools as well. The 2 nurses at Norris that are .9 do need to be restored to full-time status, as well as the librarian that Eliza mentioned. And in regards to addressing additional social emotional support for our students, the high school is requesting a full-time school adjustment counselor, and Norris is requesting a .5. But honestly, they could probably use more of that as well. So those are pretty much really the highlights. I'm just trying to learn all the different complexities of such an interesting district. And with COVID, every day is a challenge, but I really hope that by the end of the year, I can identify our strengths and what kind of a vision and goal we need in the future. One simple, it's not simple, but we don't have a district mission statement. We use the high school's mission statement and and their logo. So we need to discuss our core values as a district with all of us to determine our mission and vision, which will then guide the strategic plan towards our big initiatives over the next 3 years.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah. Great. And thank you for providing the rest of this information too. We won't go through it tonight, but it's impressive to see all the goals and things that you've got in mind here and the various benchmarks and the steps that have already started to be taken. So thank you for putting all that together. How about any questions, thoughts?
Have I bored you to tears?
I do, but go ahead, I already.
Well, my questions are going to be more on the financial side, and I know it's not on the agenda, but were we going to give Bobby
Yes,
a
no,
moment
she
to
is.
address?
Yes, no, she is. I mean, we got there a little late, but we're going to throw her in here at the same
And
time.
then, I'm not sure who's going to want the questions, whether it's going to
Yeah.
be the super or Bobby,
Okay, well,
but, so I can
they can
defer.
tackle them together. But let's hang on that and see if Renee, you've got some first?
The document that you provided was really, really helpful. I really enjoyed reading the goals. I'm just curious, I know it was part of a process you're going through, but does it include meeting directly with students?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was speaking with Kristen Smitty, who took a position at Gateway, and she has lunch with the students. And she said, Deanna, you got to be careful, because my question to them is, what can I do to improve the district? And she says her last response was to get a hot tub. And I said, well, they're not wrong. That really would make for a better school district. So I haven't met with focus groups with students yet. I'm just trying to get a handle by meeting the different town administrators and trying to keep up with the 5 different school committees. But I do plan on meeting with the school councils at the high school and with students, just to find out what their experiences are and what I can do as a superintendent to make it a better experience for them as well.
My kids went to school along with Joy and Lauren, and I think a lot of us feel that Hampshire and Norris are very, very special places, and for lots of reasons. And, you know, in spite of a lot of funding woes, you know, we're fortunate and I find the students to always be remarkably mature and provide tremendous feedback. So I think it would be great to actually meet with students. I think we'd all like to have a hot tub, but I think they'd probably provide really good feedback. The other question I had is the regional agreement. You know, when you mentioned in the regional agreement about Cornwall Elementary School feeds up to Hampshire Regional, but they're not part of the regional agreement. We're having a 50th year of the Hampshire Regional High School. The regional agreement is very outdated, extremely outdated. And I think at one point when the station area of the school changed to 6 schools, 1 district.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't really support that at all because I don't think they had school committee representation at the time, and I don't think they were part of the agreement, even though we were sharing some administrative. It was before your time, but anyway, I just think that it might be a good idea to look at the regional agreement at some point. I think it is very outdated, and that's a big task, but I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
And just the last thing is, you know, a lot of people talk about diversity, and yet they don't often talk about how people's health are negatively affected by being parts of disadvantaged groups. And so I applaud all the attention to emotional, behavioral, and social learning. I don't think in my schooling I learned about the internment camps of Japanese people. So I think that there's a lot of focus right now on history and what gets included and not included, and I just appeal to continue to forge on and discuss about how people's health are significantly negatively impacted by being parts of groups that actually get bullied and things like that. So I applaud those efforts.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and I think I would just, moving on to the idea of a district strategic plan, I think the whole idea of having a common purpose and really clarifying that mission statement and being sure that everybody's core values and you know, perspectives are at least aligned. They won't be all the same, but at least they're aligned with the others within the district and with yours. I mean, I think that makes for effective leadership on your part. So I would encourage you to keep on pursuing that strategy for sure, because I think that's the way to go, to get all that buy-in from the different schools and, you know, get everybody thinking along the same line with what they would like to see in terms of the
Definitely.
outcomes of education. Yeah, great. Anything else? Okay, if not, why don't we have Bobby come up and, as the business administrator, and give us an addendum, shall we say.
I'm Bobby, business administrator for the district. And as you all got my report at the 11th hour, I'll just kind of recap what I put. Currently, what I'm working on is budgets for the 5 schools. The first thing I have to do is the assessment to all the schools, and that is based on the October 1 data that I get generally towards the end of October. So that has been done, and I have actually done the central office budget for all schools as was requested, and that will start to be presented at each school committee at their regular meeting. And then also at the 5 district agreement working group. So it's really actually a good thing that we did this, because I think that'll do great at that meeting, just to be able to show some of the nuances and things that are different, and help give me some guidance as to what we should do with those nuances. So other than that, I've also been closing out the 5 schools and doing 6 end-of-year reports. That's all been done. As far as that goes, I just want to say that we had a administrative assistant hired this year for us in central office, a lot to help me in my role, as well as to assist the superintendent. And I want to say that for the first time in probably 17 years. 5 out of the 6 end-of-year reports were turned in on time. And probably 2 months prior to other years. So I just want to say that that is working out. We have a long way to go, but that is one thing that's helped, as well as helping me to hopefully get to budgets a little bit earlier than in past. For budget concerns, really, everything's on track with the budget. There are some special education costs that were not budgeted for that could be a concern. I'll be keeping an eye on that. As you know, we just put a Band-Aid on the Norris budget, and we will need to address that at some point. Both schools, both principals really put forward the best budget they can to instruct the kids and to give the kids the best education. And what we're going to try to do this year in regards to that is hopefully share out the regional budget to the elementary schools prior to it being voted, just so that everybody can see what's happening and why she's requesting what she's requesting versus what the elementary schools are requesting. So that's another change that we're going to have for this year. And then for the next 4 to 6 months, basically, it will be working on budgets, and it will be working with the auditors to get the audits done for the 2 regional school districts, and just the everyday normal activities, you know, the day-to-day watching over the current budget and that sort of thing.
Thanks. A quick one. You mentioned rural aid, both for Norris and for Hampshire Regional. Could you just talk about that? Is that a state grant, or what is that, and what can it be used for?
I'm going to let Deanna answer that because she answers it much better than I do.
It can really be used for anything.
Come up to the mic if you would, please.
Sorry. This is the first year that all of the schools received some form of rural aid. And all the schools were listed priority 1, except Norris was just priority 2. And it's kind of based on how many miles. Priority 1 is 11 students per square mile or less that are being serviced. And I think Norris falls in the 11 to 22 miles, but don't quote me on that. While they would like it to be used for collaboration, they're kind of vague on that. It really can be used for anything. And I think, I had the report. 67 schools in Massachusetts qualified, so we were happy. And Norris did receive around $35,000, which is wonderful. We needed that to offset certain costs.
And the source, is that state or federal?
It's a state, it was what was passed recently by a lot of lobbying by the Western Mass.
Senator Hines, and is that the Senator
Yeah,
Hines
yeah.
one mostly from the Hilltown area? Yeah, okay.
And just to build on that, just to clarify on that, so how did the funds come in? And if so, how did they flow, and did they flow from the state to Hampshire Regional to then be dispersed? And the reason I'm asking the question is because we have the latest receipts and it's not listed. So I don't know if it was blended in with Chapter 70 funds.
I think it is separate from, yep, there you go.
I can check on that for you, John, but
Okay.
it should come right to your.
To the town and then
Yeah,
flow up?
right through an EFT.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will check tomorrow to see if the town's,
Because if traditionally we haven't received it here, I mean, my guess is that there's probably a question mark somewhere, this hasn't come in before, what do we do with it? And knowing that that department is new here is one. My-
How is it being used? How are the funds being used?
it can be used for just about anything.
Is it for this fiscal year? Is it for this school
current-
year?
Yeah,
So has it been decided yet how it's being used?
no. Not that we've all discussed together. I'm sure they have 500 thoughts as to how they're going to do it, but just making a note.
And then I know that this year the Durham contract is up, right? So does it renew on July 1st, the busing contract? And I'm sure it's too early to tell, but do you have a gut feeling? Is it going to stay flat? You think it's going to increase or decrease?
I'm going to say it's definitely going to increase. I saw something on one of my listservs today that one of the schools out, and thank God it's out east, but Their contract came in, they went out to bid, and it was a 39% increase.
Yeah, and especially the way we budget it here, that's a line item on the town side, and as next month we start our budget process, I think it's safe to assume that that line item's gonna go up. And then just, again, because you do the regional budgets ahead of time, first, not ahead of time, what, if anything, do you have for initial thoughts? Are you thinking you're gonna be coming in at the 2%, the 2.5%, the 5%, the 1%? Just, again, so we could do like a placeholder on our end, on the select board side, as we start to move forward.
For the
And building
high
the
school
overall
and the elementary budget?
Well, the regional, I'm pretty comfortable
Well-
speaking on Norris.
For the regional, it depends, like, I'm assuming we're gonna come in pretty close to 2.5 or under on the budget side. But what that means on the assessment
For the
side is a different
allocations.
number.
Right.
And I can't tell you that until I actually get to see those numbers, which won't come out until late December, early January.
Okay.
Just remind me, do we know, I'm sure you know, how many students from Southampton are at Hampshire Regional? Do we know? Okay.
About 50%, right?
Yeah, it used to be like,
Oh, sorry,
I'm thinking 480,
really?
but I could be wrong.
From Southampton?
52%, if I remember correctly.
It's 55%.
50, that's what it's been, yeah.
I can't imagine the busing is going to be even or less, given the price of gas and everything else. But if the state paid regional transportation the way they promised way back when, we wouldn't be in the boat we're in.
Right, that's true. That is true.
Good. Any further comments, questions? One last one?
One more on the Rule aid. Do you anticipate that to continue year after year, or was this a one-time? Do you think right now it's just a one-time?
We've gotten it in 2 of our other schools. This will be the 3rd year. So I'm thinking it's part of the reform, under the Chapter 70 reform. And they've decided to keep it out of the actual Chapter 70 funds, which I think is great. So I am anticipating it will continue, but I don't know what the dollar amount, will it increase or decrease? So for Chesterfield Goshen, who's gotten it, this is their 3rd year. They went down about 10,000 from what they got the previous year. They got like 26 the previous year in 21, and then this year they only got 16. So I think it depends on how many schools are going to be eligible, and then what the pot is.
And then, this isn't a question, but this is a comment, being, not the nurse, but the finance. I can tell you, I don't have enough positive things to say about Bobby and her team, and there are times we don't see eye to eye, but it's usually just over the numbers. And she has done a tremendous amount of work during this whole transition with the superintendent to get Dr. Bonneville in there now, and working with this all-district working agreement, which we're never going to be unanimous on, but we've made tremendous progress on this. And just the simple thing of getting all the communities to agree that the health insurance for central office staff should be in the central office budget, because that translates to a lesser number to Southampton, which is fair and equitable, versus putting in the regional budget, we pay 55 cents on the dollar. So I think that was like a $32,000 adjustment, which is why last year, while the regional budget went up, the impact to Southampton was only 1%.
Right.
And just having Bobby there, and hopefully she'll be there another 10 years, but with the 17 years of knowledge
Yeah, I heard
that you
17
have.
already, I think.
Yeah.
If my husband has his way, I will be.
But the more we can take advantage of your knowledge now and why things are working the way they are, and pass that knowledge on to the new team that's in there, I'll support a 5-year or 10-year agreement for you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you, Bobby.
I just want to say thank you to
Yeah.
everybody that's
Yeah,
here. I
that's
mean,
good. Yeah, sure, yeah. Come on up, Margaret, yeah.
I was just going to say thank you to the school committee members that are here, too. And John Lumber included. It's not easy these last couple of years in healthcare, but it's also not easy at all being in schools, and so I really appreciate all you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Margaret Larson, and I'm the chair at Hampshire Regional. So I first want to extend my deepest appreciation to both Dr. Bonneville and to Lauren. So these are people who are taking a new job, which is challenging enough in a regional district, and then you add COVID on top of that. And they have been transparent, responsive, helpful, provided guidance for us as school committee, and been on the ball very consistently. Of course, Bobby has always been thus for us, and we're doing quite a bit in school committee about educating our members about the budget, a lot of budget 101 kind of information, and Bobby has been doing more presentations to us, just more transparency across the board, which I think is helpful. Speaking from school committee, so we have a couple of new members, 2 of whom are here tonight, so Dylan and Heather, as well as Jerry Jennings, and it has been really a blessing, I think, for Southampton to have some new people on school committee. So we have a couple of veterans, myself and Bill Curran, and we have some new people who are offering new perspectives, very thoughtful comments, ideas, ways for us to progress. And I think John might agree with me on this, that in the past, school committees have been reactive, and I think we're trying to be a little bit more proactive. And so we kinds of things are, okay, let's really focus, and if we're focusing on these items, we should know those items very well. And then I think the last thing is the 5 districts working group that we're working on in order to work with the central office budget, superintendent hiring and evaluation, and I suspect that the regional agreement would be on the list next as well. So, and thank you to Select Board for being so responsive to us and entertaining our ideas and the ways we want to take the school. So thank you for that too.
Well, thank you, and thank you everyone for coming and sharing your thoughts and perspectives tonight. It's really been helpful for all of us, and especially to have given us some things ahead of time to read and kind of digest. Sometimes it's a little bit foreign for those of us that are not involved in it on a daily basis to understand some of the issues and terminology that you deal with, but this has been very, very helpful. So thank you very, very much for coming, and you're welcome to stay, or you may depart, however you'd like. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I do want to make a comment. I mean, the reports like we heard tonight and what we hear every week, I think is so important to residents to keep them informed of what's happening in the various departments. I think it's a great addition, to the meetings. I know it adds a little more time, but the information is certainly worth it, and it is all in the interest of transparency. And I think it goes a long way.
Yep, no, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to appointments and resignations. We have a few appointments tonight. Let's see if I can find the right ones here. Okay, we have a first one. Charlie Kanicki is requesting to be appointed to the Capital Committee. Term would expire June 30th, 2024. We have a letter from Charlie saying that he had previously served for about 6 years on the committee and feels that he can be of service. Well, I think we could just take that one, and then should we take the 2 together, and then the rest of them are kind of grouped? I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do this.
Well, I'd like to make a comment about this.
Okay.
First of all, did he fill out the form to be on a committee?
No, he sent a letter.
Okay, I thought our standard was that everybody fill out the form, just so that it's consistent and all the questions get answered the same way. That would be my request. I actually don't support this appointment because I think if you're on a building committee, I think that being on capital, even though we don't have a bylaw that opposes that, the finance committee, people are not supposed to be on any other committee. If anyone's on a school building committee or a senior center building committee or a public safety building committee, I don't support them being on capital. There's been a request for appointment for both of these committees at the same time. And so I just feel like there's just not enough objectivity. So I cannot support it.
Interesting perspective. Can we, maybe, I guess, the way to go through this, though, is to have a motion on the floor and then discuss.
Okay.
Have more
Well,
discussion.
I would,
Yeah.
point of order.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
believe what's before us is a letter of interest. If
Yeah.
we only act upon applications, and an application has been filled out, nor is it before us, I don't think there's anything for us to act upon.
Okay.
Well, I think, I'm not sure how,
And again, I'm assuming, I'm taking Maureen at her word
Yeah.
that's the process.
yeah. We definitely have the volunteer application form on our website. I think people generally know that it's there. I don't know if we have something that we have ever, I don't know, prior to me, made clear whether a letter of interest is sufficient, or it's the letter and the actual application. I don't know, Ed, can you speak to any of that, or?
I don't know if the board has ever taken an official vote. From my own, shall we say, personal opinion, the form has value where the appointments are for filling elected terms because they're checked by the town clerk. However, in my own personal opinion, I think the form lacks some questions or pulling information out of people. So I would say either maybe the board think about a letter and an application, or redoing the application to pull more information out of people's education or professional backgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I think the more information, looking at people's skills and how well matched they are for different positions in the town, I think that's a good idea.
Well, I'm looking at the following one,
Right.
and it does ask, please list education, professional achievement, skills, and so forth, which is not in the letter.
Yeah.
So I think at the very least, since it says application to serve on a town board or committee, we should require that everybody use that.
All right.
And most people do.
So at this point,
Where, I'm sorry, Chris,
Yeah, go ahead.
when these letters come in,
they normally
or I should say, when the application comes in, who do they come to?
go to Ed.
Maybe the town administrator.
Yeah.
Then perhaps we just ask the town administrator just to forward off an email or a letter to this individual thanking them for the letter, but could you please fill out the application? And then we can bring it up. Separate to that, we can talk about redoing
Okay,
the whole process.
all right. So can I have a motion of some sort to that effect? That
I'll make the motion.
we would pass this over tonight?
I'll second it.
All right. Any more discussion on that?
I think we have to be clear about the motion, because you said pass over,
Right.
and you said,
That
right.
that
I'm
we're
seconding
accepting
what
it
John
and
said.
and we're
Oh, accept-
communicating with them that we'd like to consider it, but you have to follow this
Okay.
process.
Okay, have to fill out the application form.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
I stand corrected, okay.
No,
All right.
I seconded that.
All right. All those in favor then of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't hear any opposition, so that's the situation, okay. Next one is Cindy Palmer. This is a request for an appointment to the Public Safety Complex Building Committee. This term would expire June 30th, 2024. This one is filled out on the town's volunteer form that's online and signed off on by Lucy as a voter registration confirmation. Basically here, if I can read this, from Cindy, the most applicable experience I bring to this application is a 3+ year member of the planning board and several other town committees. Further, I'm a senior myself, age 71, and I'm informed that the Friends of Southampton Council on Aging voted to have me represent seniors. Though other seniors are certainly welcome to serve, I'm not coming as a planning board representative or appointee.
Yeah. And just to be clear, it was the Friends of the Council on Aging, not the Council on Aging Board.
Okay.
And I just wanted to mention that on, I believe, the 21st of December, the agenda includes addressing the Public Safety Building Committee.
Yep.
The charge as well as the composition.
It does.
So it's almost a little bit of the cart before the horse, and having previously appointed Charlie and now an application, and I know that I had said the importance of having seniors on there. I did mention as a liaison to Council on Aging about having a representative from the seniors, but everybody was feeling pretty stretched because some people are on the Senior Center Building Committee and other people, Josie, for example, stepped up to be on PQB. So they don't have somebody. So I would support this, but I wonder if we should wait and hold off from public safety meeting or appointing anybody else until the next meeting.
Okay. I think one of the things that we had, you had relayed was the idea of having a broader committee and having more representation of people in town. That we were concerned last time, I think, as we talked about the level of support that we might have for the public safety complex in general. So the idea of having somebody representing seniors, I think, is a good one, but we actually have not taken that agenda item to talk about the composition of the committee itself, because I think we had thought that we would be relooking at the composition as well as the charge, and that wouldn't be on until our 21st meeting.
On December 21st?
December 21st, yeah.
So then would it be appropriate to make a motion to lay this on the table until December 21st?
Okay.
And I'll second that
I
then.
would think that would be appropriate. Any further thoughts on that discussion? No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so be it. No opposition. Okay. Next, all right, now next is, and I will say that we have not filled out, I have not filled out the paperwork. I guess we have to. Yes, we have 4 people for this new ad hoc cost efficiencies committee. Ed Gibson as the town administrator, we had set the membership here. So Ed as the town administrator, it had been decided that John and myself would represent select board. And then Vicky Morrow has been designated by the finance committee as the finance representative to the committee. All of these terms, as we had done, I think, for previously, on the previous meeting, we had set the term just to November 30th, 2022 to get things started. And so we do have these 4 names. There is no paperwork to go with these, so if we want to be consistent.
But these, I agree, but I think there's a little bit difference here, and I don't know, typically when somebody attends a committee meeting as a liaison from, is that still, I guess we should clarify that.
Yeah, I don't,
All 4 of these appointments are all people that are representing either
Right.
the select board or the finance
It's true.
committee, and that might be a little different.
Okay.
yeah, I don't see these as in the volunteer capacity.
Okay. These are more just designated
Right,
people representing to serve on a
Designated
committee.
appointments, yeah, exactly.
Well, anybody else have thoughts about that? Joy?
I think other people that are.
Do volunteers have terms?
Yeah, we have terms here
Yeah.
through
That's what
November.
I'm just,
Yeah,
but
and this is
in
consistent.
general though, or when we appoint someone to with a
Yes.
term, we usually have
Basically,
that form though.
usually, basically, the form, well, the terms are done in a staggered fashion, you know, per the rules of that committee itself. But usually there's a 1-year and a 2-year and a 3-year appointment. As an ad hoc committee, like we had done with Tech and with Grant, we were only appointing people for 1 year just to get it off the ground and see if it was worth continuing as a actual committee.
Did the other ad hoc committees have to fill out the forms?
They did.
They did.
I think a
okay.
lot of them did. I don't know if everybody did, but I think a lot of them
But
did.
they were not representing the select
It
board.
was a new committee,
They were
yeah.
new committees, new volunteers who were not
Brand new
associated with
volunteers.
any other boards, not representing any other interests.
Brand new
Okay.
faces in general that were not even from other committees,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a good question, though. We should probably,
We should tidy that up for sure.
Yeah, I think the difference here is we said, the makeup of this, that went out to, and I forget what the makeup was, that the finance committee, I think it's finance, capital, and there was somebody
and
else in that
school
group.
Right.
And planning.
No, but within
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
that finance,
Yeah.
there were 3 groups, and we said, one of the 3 of you has to come
Mm-hmm.
and be appointed to this. So it wasn't like a free-for-all, so in Vicky's case, she's the one coming from that
From
cluster.
finance, Right.
You know, Ian's coming from the public
One of the other
safety
clusters,
cluster.
yes, we've already appointed the other 4, so
Yeah,
Eliza from school, and then Janet Kane's another cluster,
Right.
Ian's one, and Bradley's on the other clusters. We've already done 4 appointments to the committee. So,
as a liaison, I think it's a little bit different.
A little
but
different.
I'd be open to doing it differently.
But there's also open seats to the public. They have to fill
so
out a
those
form.
would be
They
applicants,
need a,
yes.
yeah, I
because
think we
there's-
just need to clarify that,
There
like,
is,
there's some
yes.
members that need to fill out the form, and the ones that are representing already elected or appointed officials do
All right.
not,
For
Correct.
employees.
valid
or
point.
employees.
Right, we have stated that those that would be coming in from the town perspective, people that we were hoping to have in as volunteers with financial background or HR background, would send in their interest to Ed with that form, and a letter of interest to go along with it, I believe. So that has not, I don't believe we've had any of those thus far, but I would hope that we could get going on the committee, and eventually, you know, I don't think we can hold up until we have a full 12-person committee. I think we need to start moving somehow, so. All right, so I think I'm hearing that everybody's okay to take up these appointments tonight as
Yeah,
or are
there were
representing other
appointees, yeah.
committees?
I'll make a motion then to approve Vicky Morrow, Ad hoc Cost Efficiencies Committee, representing the Finance Representative, term to expire November 30th, 2022. Chris Falls, representing the Select Board, to the same committee, term to expire November 30th, 2022. John Lumbra, representing the Select Board, term to expire November 30th, 2022. And Ed Gibson, Town Administrator, term to expire November 30th, 2022.
I'll second.
Okay. If no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, but that just does point out, we need to be a little bit clearer perhaps in some of our, we have, actually, one of the bylaws that the Bylaws Committee has worked on is membership in committees. That is a new one that has been worked on, so maybe we need to tinker with that a little bit more closely too, to be sure that that's all very well understood. Okay, moving on to reports. Town Administrator, Ed, I'm turning it over to you for now.
Certainly. Updates. The Attorney General's office has contacted us about participating in receiving settlement funds from 2 statewide settlements with 3 opioid distributors, Cardinal, McKesson, and Amerisource Bergen, and opioid maker Johnson & Johnson. The more municipalities which join this settlement, the more the distributors and J&J will pay under these settlements. I will add this to an agenda item to the December 21st Select Board meeting agenda, as the deadline to file will be January 2nd. We would be able to register our participation online. At last night's Board of Health meeting, the Board of Health voted, due to the increase in positive COVID-19 numbers in the state and locally and in our surrounding communities, that they recommended that the Select Board postpone the special town meeting until the positive numbers started dropping again, maybe a February timeframe or early March. If it was not possible to postpone the special town meeting, then they asked if it was possible to reduce the number of articles, and if it was possible to have the meeting split between 2 large rooms to make it more feasible for social distancing. Stantec has submitted further information regarding drainage flow and road pitch to Mass DOT in regard to the Shared Streets grant for the College Highway sidewalk. We are now waiting for Mass DOT to approve the access permit and Stantec's recommended changes to the drainage design. Vicky Morrow is working with Bradley Oxon, a town accountant, and the assessors to complete the forms necessary for our town fiscal year 22 tax recap submittals to the Department of Revenue. They should be completed either today or tomorrow. The actual start of the demolition of the East Street Bridge is scheduled to start this week. In fact, I think it actually began today. Holyoke Gas and Electric was working with the bridge contractor yesterday and today to ensure that the old gas line is abandoned, capped, and purged of gas. Just to let you know, the assessor's office will be closed several days this week due to an illness with one of the department employees. And then upcoming Select Board meeting December 21st. Special town meeting December 14th at 7 p.m. at Norris Elementary School, maybe, and Select Board meeting meetings for January to be determined.
Okay. I'd like to suggest that we discuss the yays and nays about a special town meeting in a couple more items a little bit further down the agenda, rather than taking it on here. Any comments, questions for Ed on his report, however?
No, and I just want to make a statement, and there won't be a question, but it's on B, given that you want to talk about that later on. I'm sure, maybe, I wasn't at the meeting last night, but for the record, a significant investment has been made in Norris, that every room is equipped with the iWaves, and the HVAC system has been tested repeatedly with MERV 13 filters, and they are replaced 3 times during the 9-month school period, so every 90 days. So I just want that as part of the record, and then we can talk about it later.
Sure, okay.
I just have a question on the first one, Ed. Are we going to get paperwork before the 21st about that?
What's that?
About the settlement? Is there paperwork that we're going to get to read before that?
I can send you the link to the online forms.
Okay, I'd like to read it,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah, I know something came through on email today, but I haven't seen much information about it at all, so. And then regarding the tax recap, so once that is done within, that's got to be completed by it had to be completed by the 30th, right?
Well, you want it completed before that because of the fact that then it takes time it'll take DOR probably a day or so to approve the actual submittals and tax rate, and then that has to be input and transmitted to actually print and send out the tax bills.
Okay,
I think Chris was referring to November 30th.
Yeah, I thought it had to be submitted, the tax recap had to be
Right.
submitted to
No.
DLS
So,
by November 30th, that's not right?
That's what we thought.
Okay,
no, right.
okay,
So Chris, just where that's coming from, and Ed had clarified that before for, I guess, probably in a sidebar conversation, is best practices DOR, that's the date for it to go in. And that's what Ms. West was looking at
okay,
when she gave us that date.
got it, okay. But somewhere within the next day or two, that should happen, and we could be all okay with that? And do we know yet, we don't know yet what our tax rate will be then? Okay, all right.
Something under $75.
It'll actually go down, and it'll go down probably about $1.
Uh-huh.
And the
Because,
assessments went up,
huh?
just like most other towns, but the assessments went up.
Correct.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
values have gone up.
right, values have gone up, yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks. Let's move on to select board reports. Do we have a few this time? John, I'll start with you.
Sure, so PPPB board met last night, and we can take everything up later on the agenda under signatures when that comes up. I did attend the Finance Committee meeting, and I know there was a question for me to come back with. I'm gonna have to dig up my notes. Do you want to
Okay, we'll
come back to me?
move ahead. Yeah, Francine, something?
Okay. The Bylaws Committee met on December 1st. They finalized the organization of the indexing that will be used by the company E360 or General Code to build our comprehensive and comprehensible online bylaw document. We made some minor adjustments to the naming of public buildings and structures, which we will review later tonight on the agenda. We established a schedule for public posting and comment for dog and dog kennel draft bylaws. As we did with previous drafts of bylaws of public interest, the document will be posted online for people to comment, and a public meeting will also be scheduled for in-person comment before the final draft is produced. We expect that the drafts will be posted early to mid-January, and that a public meeting will be held on February 8th, 2022, unless there are some mitigating circumstances around gathering as a result of COVID. The Board of Health, as Ed mentioned, met last night. It was reported that there are currently 51 active COVID cases in Southampton, 20 of which are at North School. Based
How many hours?
20. Based on our current situation, the Board of Health will request an extension of funding for the contact tracer position through June 2022, given the fact that there's been a rise and obviously an increase in the work of tracing people who have been exposed. The main focus of the discussion of the meeting, as Ed talked about, was recommendations on the safe conduct of the special town meeting scheduled for a week from tonight at the Norris Cafeteria. And in priority order, their first choice was postpone it. If we can't postpone it because we don't get extensions on some of the important items that have to be voted on, then they're recommending that the warrant articles be reduced significantly to reduce the amount of time that people are together, and also to arrange for a second room for overflow to accommodate the 6-foot distance between participants, in addition to having people masked. All right, we talked about the protocols to sanitize the meeting space before and after, as well as microphones and taking all other necessary precautions in terms of registering and so on and so forth. Right now, the Board of Health is deferring any decision regarding changes in masking. They are also recommending to the school committee that masking at Norris continue for the foreseeable future, regardless of the vaccination rate in the school. They are planning to hold a vaccine clinic at Norris School over the Christmas holiday for students and adult Southampton residents, and more information will follow. The health director conducted a follow-up regarding the septic concerns in the Hamden Ponds area. A review of previous design plans with possible enhancements will be held to plan the system upgrade if needed. With regard to the water break at Southampton Meadows, the Board of Health felt that the building management response was quick and appropriate. Residents of that building were immediately and temporarily relocated to hotels, and as of yesterday, all but 11 people have returned to their apartments. Carpeting has been removed and replaced, thorough cleaning, and residents have been reimbursed for any lost food items. Next, the health agent reported she's been very busy with routine inspections and is experiencing an increase in the Title V inspections due to an increase in septic repairs, to which no one can attribute the cause. But anyway, she's on the move. And then finally, their next meeting is scheduled for January 3rd at 5 p.m. And the Norris School Committee meets tomorrow night, 6 o'clock here.
Okay.
That's it.
Good, thanks.
Francine, did the Board of Health discuss a mandatory mask mandate?
Did they discuss it?
A mask mandate in Southampton?
They talked about it, and then the concern is that it would be applied to private entities and whether or not they could be, would they be enforced? So they were going to have conversations, I think, with some of the businesses, but they said they would defer making a decision on it till their next meeting, or unless something comes up, I guess, in between. I don't know if that answers your question, but that was the discussion.
Okay. All right. Winnie, anything from your committees?
Yeah, CPC is meeting tomorrow night to discuss the article for the warrant relative to the funding of particularly the park grant. Otherwise, they haven't met. COA met on the 1st of December. They're continuing with memory cafes. You can check the newsletter for additional programming. There's program coordinator, job description is going to PQB. There's also a temporary admin assistance with PQB. There's an initial group looking at the steps of a design and plan for a new senior center. A couple people went to Hadley yesterday and had a really good visit. I'm planning going to South Hadley and talking to the director there. The COA's next meeting is the 5th of January. The Board of Assessors met on the 29th of November, last Monday. They're addressing applications for exemptions. They're still recruiting a principal assessor. It's posted on Indeed, and they're meeting again on the 13th at 4 p.m. Ed mentioned about the office. And then Public Safety hasn't met, and we're addressing the composition and goals of this committee on the 21st of December.
Okay, thanks. Joy?
Sure. Hold on, let me pull my notes up. So Open Space had not met since my last report, but they're meeting December 9th at 7 p.m. I believe that's this Thursday. Conservation Commission met last night. They discussed the Eversource funds from the settlement, and I did receive a concerned email from the chair in regards to people still walking on Manhan Meadows when they shouldn't be, because we do have signs out there. It is closed due to the conditions of the trail, and was requesting what the town's liability would be if people were ignoring those signs. I could get into a legal analysis of that myself, but I think it has to do with comparative negligence. I think that there's also much that the town can do.
I mean, as long as
until
signs are
it's
posted,
fixed.
the signs are pretty visible in terms of the trail being closed or the area
Exactly.
being closed. So I think people have to take it on their own personal responsibility.
Exactly. And we're still always looking for volunteers, the Conservation Commission. Their next meeting is December 20th at 6 p.m. over Zoom. I did go to the library trustee meeting, is particularly because they do have the article on the town warrant. They wanted to know what the retirement fund was. So, because they were concerned that that would be questioned at the town meeting, and I didn't have an exact answer for them at that moment, so I can always get back to them with an answer. But just for future reference, that's most likely going to come up at town meeting, I'm sure. Planning board met last week. There was a lively discussion about the inclusionary bylaw, but it seems in general there's a consensus in regards to affordable housing that the town needs a housing trust and step towards town sewer if we are going to be looking at any kind of affordable housing in the future. And their next meeting is December 15th at 7 p.m. I believe they're going to be discussing cluster development. Housing Authority met last night, and there's a presentation from two individuals, two local businessmen who are looking to do a project on College Highway that includes affordable housing. And they are going to be approaching CPC in the future, and we're working with them to make their idea more feasible and presentable to the town. And so their next Housing Authority meeting is January 3rd at 6 p.m., back at 6 p.m.
Okay, good, all right. John, come back to you. Yep.
So back on the Finance Committee, so they met and reviewed the special town meeting articles. The ones that they took exception to and voted against was the transfer station for the $25,000. Their position on it was that you can't spend retained earnings after June 30th until they're certified again. They questioned whether or not the line item, I know it's not, ambulance receipts, had sufficient funds in it to justify both the $68,000 of debt service and the $30,000 request, based on the reports they were looking at. And then just in general conversation, and I'm sure, everything comes down to timing. I wonder if going forward, it might be appropriate that before we start discussing or finalizing on warrants or voting on articles, that go through finance first. I know just sitting there and listening to some of their reasoning and thought process, I'm not saying it would have necessarily changed my mind on how I voted on certain things, but I would have been more informed. So I know timing is always an issue, but I guess it would be good to have it vetted before it got to us, if that's even possible.
Okay.
That's all.
Thought for the future? All right, good. Okay, moving on, the Grant Committee, Ad Hoc Grant Committee. We met just recently and have started work in collaboration with Chief Workman on the Hazard Mitigation Planning Grant, which is what we're going to try to corral for the update of the Hazard Mitigation Plan. This is actually a rolling application, so the sooner we get it in, the better. We're hoping to be able to get it in by the middle of January. There's usually about a 6-month wait until you actually hear about it. And right now, our hazard mitigation plan is active, and it will expire at the end of January. As long as we have applied to a grant program, it's okay that it expires while we're waiting to hear about the grant. We verified that with the state. And we've been in touch with PVPC to get some idea of costing. PVPC would be the likely technical assistance provider to help us do that, given that they helped put the first one or the last one together. And this would be an update process. But this application for the HMPG grant is much simpler than others that we were looking at, and it looks like it's not going to be terribly complicated to apply for. So that's going to be our first thing. We are still looking at a couple of other grants on the horizon. Open Space has been interested a little bit in what's called an LWCF grant, which is the Land Water Conservation Fund, and they're asking a few questions about that, and we may get involved in helping do something there. And we're still checking out the MVP and the BRIC grant opportunities, and I have started to draft a note based on what I saw of sort of some of the priorities out of the MVP plan. I was going to draft a note out to relevant town employees that have been involved in some of this, especially like highway, water, some of our folks that are involved in vulnerability planning in particular, and see what kind of ideas they might have for priority projects. Because right now, we don't have a particular project in mind to actually apply for those, but those are coming on the horizon as well. And probably last but not least, when I gave the grant report a few weeks ago, I think I had mentioned that we had one grant pending. And I'm excited to say that the grant committee actually just heard that we are also awarded a grant from the Community Compact IT program, and this is for $51,070, 070.
Get going.
It's about $21,000 less than what we had asked for, but that's okay. And this is basically through the Ad hoc Tech Committee to start working on cybersecurity issues here at Town Hall. So that's really a great result. So I will say that the grant committee thus far is 6 for 6.
Congratulations, that is awesome.
I think I'm gonna knock on wood and hope that our luck continues in FY '22 or calendar '22.
There's a gavel there,
But-
knock on wood there.
I know, something. Anyway, so that's it. So
good.
that was good. We
Keep
weren't
going,
sure.
Ed.
We weren't sure we were going to get that, and a big shout out especially to the Ad hoc Tech Committee and Kim Florick in particular, who was really a driver in terms of the technical specs that were needed, as well as our folks through this new PVPC IT collaborative that we joined. All kind of came together in good timing. Okay?
Chris, I'm wondering if either you or Ed could explain something. So we got money from, I think, PVPC. Can you explain about the hazard mitigation? We have been designated a community, but now we're going to use the grant process to then update our hazard mitigation plan.
We're an MVP community.
We're an MVP
Right.
community, right. So could you just explain that whole process, like where are we going with this? And it just seems like it's just confusing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the HMPG is a planning grant specifically for updating kinds of plans.
Okay.
Rather than a hardcore project, whereas I think both the BRIC and the MVP, as I understand it, are much more hands-on, shovel in the dirt kinds of projects, is my
Didn't we
understanding.
also talk about the BRIC program, which is the federal government? Didn't we also talk about that, using those funds or applying to update our emergency management plan?
No, we had talked about that to update our hazard mitigation plan, which is expiring.
Okay, so now we're shifting, instead of thinking about it being a BRIC application to being.
Going to a much simpler one, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
That's federal
what I-
money,
okay,
which.
that's what I wasn't sure.
It's like overkill for what we need to do. If it was maybe starting brand new to plan things, maybe.
Yeah, okay,
But an updated process shouldn't have to be as complicated. So this HMPG one that actually the folks at PVPC recommended would be the
Okay.
simplest way to go. And looking at the application, it really is.
and it's separate then from the actual applying for a grant from the hazard mitigation program to do an actual intervention
Correct.
towards one of the things we identified?
Right, so that would be through that would be the MVP or the BRIC grant to actually figure out, okay, if we've got, vulnerability number one,
Right,
are we ready to start talking about that and do a design of
Oh,
some
okay.
kind of action? So it's much more of an action-oriented
Okay.
grants rather than this HMPG one, okay?
okay,
If that
thank you,
helps.
yep.
But I wasn't involved in the MVP process, so that's why I want to go back and look at the plan itself and see what came out as some of the highlights. And then I'm going to send from the grant committee, send a note out to the various people that seem to be more relevant, and I'm assuming it's highway and water in particular, and maybe others, fire and police as well, Board of Health perhaps, to say, okay, out of this, do you have some projects in mind that we need to start really thinking about, because those are coming up pretty quick, so I'm not sure. I don't think we could do both. We could do maybe one of those two, but
Yeah,
that's why we want to get the hazard mitigation planning one out of the way, because it seems pretty simple, and I think we can keep on moving with that one. Okay,
thanks.
all right. Okay. Old business. Let's go to audit update, outstanding issues and questions. Ed?
Yes, and you have the questions that are outstanding in your packet, and I actually have had a chance to answer a couple of them, and now that the development of the warrant for the special town meeting is out of the way, I'll be able to concentrate with Bradley on responding to the remaining questions that are out there to finish off the audit with Melanson.
Any projections on when we'll have this wrapped up?
I would say we'll have it wrapped up by the end of the month.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any further questions about that?
Are there any penalties for any deadline date?
Not really.
Right.
Just to get our bond rating back in place.
Okay. All right, if nothing, we'll move on. The annual audit contract scope of work. This was, now, is this the audit contract, or this was the closeout of FY '21, Ed?
I think we're hoping that we heard back from another
We did.
vendor.
Yeah.
We did, and I think the item actually covered the two separate
Kinda-
topics, so.
kinda
We
covers it.
did hear it back from Eric Ginscherf, and their estimation of the work was that it would take approximately 200 hours at $150 an hour, so they were saying $30,000.
And he would be able to start, he said, not before January anyway, which is
Correct.
right around the corner, so that doesn't really matter, okay?
Right.
Okay. So we have two possibilities, okay? And obviously, if we did one, that affects our auditing going forward, right? If we were to take Melanson, we can't use them as our auditor going forward, is that what I understand?
You wouldn't be able to use them as your auditor for
The coming-
any
right.
particular fiscal year that they did that work.
That they did that work, yeah.
Right.
Right, so, okay.
And just refresh my memory, the quote from Melanson was how much?
35 to 50,
35,000.
35 to 50.
to 50,000, yes.
Well, I would definitely support, I think we heard a lot of very positive feedback from this auditing group, and they're less expensive, and it seems, we agreed that we definitely need to tie up the,
Well, we've got some deadlines, I think, that we have to do by the end of January, if I'm not mistaken, Ed, right? So-
We'll have to do the Schedule A by the end of January, correct?
Mhm.
yeah. Would that be able to be accomplished?
By them, I don't know. I mean, by the time we get
I would
somebody
think
on
so.
board. Maybe.
What do you think, John?
Well, 200 hours, so I'm assuming they would just come in and go straight through, so it'd be 5 weeks, which
Yeah.
in theory would be January if that's what they're going to commit to. But I think two things have to happen. One, first, we got to get the article
Right,
passed.
right.
Well, we have to assume we're going to hold the special
Yeah,
town
right.
meeting, and then get it passed to get the money. But I think in the meantime, so I don't think we can do anything, but I think in the meantime, we ask each one of them to provide 3 references of similar situations or where they've provided this accounting service. And we do a little, we get our ducks lined up ahead of time, do the due diligence now while we're waiting for the town vote. And then,
It would have been off topic from the presentation tonight, but Kinshirf does Hampshire Regional School District finance reports. And it'll be good to get some feedback from them as to how satisfied they are.
honestly, I'm not familiar with them in my experience in municipal.
Wasn't it on Jen Day that a couple of people have spoken highly of?
Yeah.
um,
They've been the auditor, or they've done this work for other towns. I've
Yes,
seen
they
them
have.
listed. I forget
Yeah.
which towns now, but you'd research
Yeah.
that when you.
Now, does this have to be bidded?
I had it, it's, it's a lot of, well, towns smaller and larger than us. I mean, they cover quite the geography in Massachusetts in terms of small towns, because everyone is in this similar situation.
Does this have to go up for bid?
It would be done under, they're both certified accounting firms, so it would not
Or
have to
vendor?
be.
Pardon?
So it would not have to be.
Okay. Well, I think we're not meeting again until the 21st, right?
Right, but John's point is true, in terms of whether we know that we've got the money, we got a cart before the horse here.
Well, we
you
could
know, in
also
terms of
approve
town
it
meeting.
pending satisfactory
Yeah, I was gonna
references
say,
and
we could do
funding.
something like that.
Is anybody opposed to just getting reference checks?
I'm not at all opposed to
No,
that.
not at all.
I'm
Not at
also
all.
wondering if we want to approve it pending
Right.
satisfactory references and funding.
Yeah.
That could be part of it, yes.
Because I think this is going to have to be contracted. I mean, I just think the sooner the better.
Yeah, and
Well-
given the holidays and whatever, it would allow anybody to plan about, you know, what their
Yeah.
January,
I
February
mean,
might look like.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I'm assuming, well, again, I assume we're going to meet on the 14th at the special town meeting. Could the select board just post a meeting immediately following that with the
Yeah.
sole subject? In the event that it passes, we then take a vote that night to award
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, that makes
Instead of waiting
sense.
till the 21st, does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that is, and then get references in the meantime? Yeah. So long as it doesn't, delay
Yeah.
the start of anybody working in January.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
We could communicate to both people, here's our plan.
Well,
here's what we're
basically,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
if you want to post a meeting for before, you can just basically take a break and then reconvene
Right.
after the town meeting.
Right.
Okay,
Call the select,
Yeah.
town meeting
We've done
called to
that
order, select board
plenty
called to
yeah,
order,
and
select
then
board.
reconvene. That works.
Right.
Yeah.
In the
Takes-
meantime, you can check references and kind of let them know that our timetable is
Yep.
January 1. Did Melanson say January 1 would work too?
I would imagine that probably, well, they might be getting back into the next audit season, so
Yeah.
I'll reach out.
Okay.
And so the reason, while we would know Melanson from an audit perspective, we don't know them from this other department of theirs that would do this kind of cleanup work, right? So that's
Correct.
where we'd want the references, not from an audit
Mhm.
perspective, since we know
Right.
them in that regard. Okay, so if we can get three references for each of them by our next meeting, that would be fine. Do we want to, so we won't do anything pending, anything right now? We'll wait until we actually schedule it on the 14th? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with that, assuming everybody else
Okay.
is. and-
Yeah,
All right, but at least we have two to choose from, so that's
Yes.
a
Yeah.
good sign. Now, one thought would be if they cannot start, anybody, whoever, can't start until late, do we have a plan B to get the Schedule A done?
We should. And what I would probably recommend is we reach out to Vicky, who's currently doing the DLS submittals, and see if she can do that for us.
And that would be
Is there any
something,
conflict being she's chair of finance?
No.
and just remind us what the Schedule A is again, for anybody listening?
I'd really have to go back and take a look at it. It's a fairly detailed schedule that is required by the state. I'd have to go back and take a look at the specifics that are on it.
Okay.
I
All
mean,
right, any further comments? Yeah?
Yeah, it just, I mean, it might be worth our while, once the recap sheet is done, for the town administrator to have a conversation with the individual doing that work and our current town accountant, and, everything that I've heard, that everything's running smoothly, they're working well together, and I think if there's any chance for that person to help more and do a little bit more work, at their existing rate is not what we were just quoted. So the more we could get done, the less we would pay for whoever this firm is that's coming in.
Yeah.
So if they're able to,
Well, and it might be
march along,
a little bit of training too for our new accountant as well
Correct.
at the same time. Yeah.
you know.
So how about, given the way things are given, and Ed will end up seeing individuals before our next meeting maybe, would we have a motion along those lines to empower Ed to have a discussion with the current individual doing the tax recap? To think about whether or not they would be interested and available to do the Schedule A for us and submit it by the end of January?
Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town administrator to negotiate on our behalf without committing to anything one way or the other. Or the previous topic so discussed. and they report back 5 minutes before the special town meeting.
And I'll second that.
You guys are serious? Okay, so, I mean, yeah, the idea would be to check in and see if the person is interested and/or available to be able to do that, because if we have a hard deadline for the end of January to submit the Schedule A, we need to be sure we've got that covered. We can't just assume that one of these two entities are going to start and be able to get that done as our priority. So, okay, all that, I think we have a motion on the floor that's understood. Could I have a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So be it. Okay. East Street Bridge update. I think you gave us a little bit, if there's any more to say about that.
No, I think I covered it. Holyoke, like I say, Holyoke Gas and Electric was out there today and yesterday, working with the bridge contractor to make sure that the contractor felt safe that old gas line was abandoned, capped, and purged of all gas in it so that they could start the actual demolition work. So.
Okay, good. All right.
Any traffic problems?
Not that I've heard so far.
Everybody's detouring appropriately?
Good.
Good, okay. All right, new business. Should we maybe suggest we just go a little bit out of order and jump right into the town warrant and this discussion about the meeting, and then come back to these other issues above that?
I'm fine with that.
Is that fine with that?
Agreed.
Given that we've got interested parties here, we have just a couple of informational things, but let's go right into the reviewing the town meeting warrant. But then what we have before us now, Ed, correct me, this is the warrant with the summary and the motions right now that we have.
Correct.
Okay, which I think we have an extra one. Does anybody have, do you have two of them at all? No? Does it have that? I was gonna give one to Robert, but maybe not. Or I can share yours.
Yeah.
Does it have the motion stuff?
I believe so.
Yes. There you go. Here's one that has motions, Robert. Thanks. Thank you. So how would we like to proceed? Shall we go through the warrants and the motions here, or do we want to start thinking about those options? Either postpone altogether, and I think we have to have a discussion about pros and cons of each of the two or three choices, right? Postpone the meeting until February-ish, February, early March. Hold the meeting as planned next week, but have fewer articles, and then go through and figure out what those articles would be that are the highest priority to get done because of certain deadlines. And number three, hold it, still probably, I assume, with a reduced, I don't know, with a reduced number of articles, but in two separate rooms, if that's possible, up at Norris?
The reduced number of articles is going to be an issue because this is what has been posted and is legal.
Right,
So I'll let Robert tell you about the rest of it.
okay.
Hi, Robert Floyd, College Highway, speaking as town moderator. This is golden, it's set in stone, so it's out of your hands as the select board. What can be done, we can't pare down arbitrarily now here.
Okay,
You can discuss and say when we get to the meeting, we'll motion to pass over.
okay,
However, it's simply opening it up, the ball's in everyone's court. Anybody in the audience can stand up and say, I want to amend that motion, let's vote on this, let's talk about it, let's discuss it. So, you know, you might get away with a couple or maybe a lot, but the idea, I think, is to make things go smoothly, whatever happens, and not set people up in a contentious atmosphere.
Sure.
We've had two rooms historically. We had 565 people. Oh, John Workman, block your ears. And they were in the other room. We had a TV. It was almost pre-cell phone, and I think it was walkie-talkie. I mean, it was crazy. It worked.
so one in the cafeteria and one in the gymnasium? Is that?
It worked until they got to the article that they were interested in, and everybody poured in.
Of course.
Like the Red Sea, they just came running into one group hug room.
Right.
So if anything goes wrong electronically in that second room, I believe everybody would just gang rush the main room. I heard, John, if I may, you said the high schools were, the rooms in the Norris School were better ventilated, but not the auditorium
No,
cafeteria.
The entire school.
The entire school.
And specifically, the gymnasium, the cafeteria, the library, and the nurses' systems have their own independent systems.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
thing's up to speed, the I waves and the filters being switched.
Okay. The students have that room until 3 o'clock, because I've been there for years and years and years, setting up with Easthampton Media, and they're full boogie until 3:10 or so. So is then that room going to be sanitized?
Yeah, my understanding is they were going to ask the fire department to come in, and whatever equipment that they have, you know about the
Their fog-
equipment better than I do, Ed.
They would sanitize the room at that point,
Right.
and then they would sanitize the room again after the
After the
special
meeting.
time.
Okay. I didn't,
Yes.
privy to that information. But as far as the mechanics of the town meeting, I see the option, and, I, as moderator, set the dates for the last 3 meetings with the support of the select board. It's prerogative of the moderator to believe that the meeting coming ahead will be safe or not safe. I'm not making any judgments tonight, but I do respect the Board of Health and their recommendation, and I would not stand and publicly go against that. So we have the meeting. You can then decide which articles you want to pass over and let the town decide. That certainly works. Setting up 2 rooms, I can't even get up on the stage because the stage is packed because of COVID, moving things around. I don't know if that second room is even vacant
Correct.
enough to have people. So I'm not a fan of 2 rooms right now.
But that would, we won't know till the night, depending upon the number of people who attend.
But then you
I mean,
won't,
we may not need a second room if
But we
only.
would have to plan ahead and do a
Right,
rehearsal and
right.
set up the equipment and the cables. I mean, it's a whole
Well, that
megillah,
has to be
but I
done
agree
in
with you.
anticipation.
And for what it's worth, the vast majority of people I've come in touch with, which is quite a bit when it gets down to showtime, aren't coming.
Are not coming.
We spiked 3, I mean, there's a lot of rumors, but we have spiked other towns, the state. They're not willing to.
Yep.
They played it safe so long. So getting a quorum of 50 and maintaining it for the duration of the meeting is my concern.
Yeah.
Because once people leave, there's no bar or restaurant we can run to and get them back. And 50, I mean,
well, and having the bare minimum
Yep.
for a special town meeting is not ideal either.
No.
and I imagine, I've seen from experience, that people come a lot for their own particular article. Once that, I mean, I've even said, I'm not to do that as a moderator, hey, you might want to consider staying because we need a quorum of 50, but they bolt, they go home.
And then we don't know whether or not we can get an extension on some of the items that really absolutely are drop dead date as of the end of this month. Is that right?
Well,
I
think-
talked to Melissa Cryan today, and she said the issue with the park grant would be that we can't sign a contract until we have the vote, and we have monies programmed to spend in fiscal year '22. It's all design funds. We could, on that one, actually go out and seek proposals or qualifications for a design firm before a February special town meeting and have someone lined up so that if that passes, we're ready to go, and the design should be able to be finished by June, and we're fine. I also reached out to Eric Wise at PVCPC because of the canal
Congrats.
question, and we're a part of either a 5 or 6 town city group on that. And Eric said, you know, both he and Melissa were very understanding of the COVID numbers going up and the position we were in. And he said that he felt that the PVPC does have some funds that they were going to kick into that pot that could cover Southampton's portion until we had a special town meeting and
then-
voted if, if that was in February, and then,
Reimburse
because
them.
I'm 99 and 9/10% sure that that particular article would pass at, town meeting. So for those two, we do seem to have some wiggle room.
What about all the balance issues?
All the what?
Like the police department, the balance issues, the transfer of, a lot of these are transfers.
Yeah.
Their transfers, it would be great to do them now, but with the numbers rising, if we had to do them in February, they'll still be there in February to do them.
Is it okay to do a negative balance on some of these line items?
Make a what?
To go to deficit spend?
It's,
I thought.
we're not supposed to.
Winter roads are the
It's
only
not
one.
ideal, but again, if we do it in February, at least it's 4 months before the end of the year, and, hopefully we would not get into that deficit spend at that point in time, whether it's with police or, anyone else.
I'll make it work, whatever you decide. I haven't picked out my tie yet for Tuesday, but I'm ready.
And what about, in terms of the library accreditation, does this have an impact if we delayed this?
If we put the money back in February, they should still get their accreditation back. The only difference, again, would be the fact that, okay, if it was approved in December, they'd probably be expanding their hours in January versus March. So,
Right, they were going to open up again on Mondays if
right,
this.
so,
yeah.
so they'd be, it'd be 2 months behind. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not life and death.
And have they already put in the waiver for this?
They have already put in the waiver, yes. There was a deadline for that. I know Bradley put in
Okay.
his paperwork part of it. I put in, I had to submit some paperwork to them, to the person at the state to support that request for a waiver.
Why was February mentioned? I'm just curious, as opposed to January, or
What's that?
why was February mentioned as a potential?
Just for time to
Yeah.
get through COVID, get through the holidays.
The numbers dropping back down, figuring that, okay, you've got this basically.
Okay, the post-holidays.
The holidays,
yeah.
are pretty- right, exactly.
Yeah.
Just, no set date, but yeah, it was more post-holiday
Well-
idea, I think, yeah.
Provided you do it before February vacation. Because
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
February vacation is going to go back up again,
Yeah.
and then we'll have
Right,
April.
right.
Those dates are when?
February, I can tell you when.
Probably the
Yeah.
President's Week, right?
Yeah.
My concern is that a number of students have already have been tested positive for COVID as short as last week, and somebody in a very safe town hall, I understand, has come down with COVID. So this isn't, just simply going into a building. This is going into a building where people with all the safety precautions have tested positive with COVID.
Just trying to look at some of the articles here.
That doesn't mean that that's where they got it,
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
just to be clear.
Give you that.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Just looking at anything else that sounds like it's got a deadline type parameter around it. The additional voting machine, we definitely need it for May.
Right.
Do we think if we postponed a town meeting that we would be able to order it, given supply chains and whatever else, that we'd actually have a second voting machine here in time?
I would
You can
think
always
so.
borrow it from another town,
I
right?
would think so.
Yeah? Yeah?
One of our Hampshire regional communities, I would hope,
Won't they be having elections too?
on the same day.
The week of the 14th.
Okay, all right.
When is
I
that?
mean, I think there are options, is what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
okay, all right. No, I just want to see that that there are options for anything that sounds like it's got kind of a a real deadline to it. So-
21st.
I think the park grant was the main reason why it was
It was,
originally.
it is, it is.
February
yeah.
vacation is the week of the 21st.
So, John,
And
yeah,
I'm
what
not
are the
clear
dates?
about what you said about that.
The week of February vacation is the week of the 21st.
February 21st is a
even later.
vacation week?
Yeah.
Okay.
So did you say that we do or don't risk losing $100,000 if the town votes to support the park grant? I mean, do we have room to not have, I mean, is that still a loss if we decide not to have the town meeting?
Well, if we still had it in February, we would still, with a positive vote, we'd still be eligible for the park grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think at most we'd squeeze 90 days out of them, given,
Yeah, okay.
Right.
given the reality. I mean, I'm not sure that we're the only town that's in the same boat here that has received a park grant, but that, if that discussion with Melissa from the state program sounded like it was relatively positive, that as long
Yes.
as we could do it early on in calendar '22, because the first year of the grant is fiscal '22, which ends at the end of June. So
Right.
we've got to be able to do
We got to be able to do the design portion.
design right
Right.
then and there.
Yeah.
And so your point about getting somebody ready to start
Yeah.
pronto is really important. So it doesn't sound like we would lose the grant at this
Well,
point in
no.
time.
Well, I'd make a motion then to delay the special town meeting until the week before February vacation then.
So that means we will not be in a position to take any action on closing the 2020 books.
Closing the 21 books either.
Yeah.
Unless you can
Right.
think of another option.
Well, like I say, we could at
Plan
least take
B.
care of the Schedule A with, hopefully with the vendor that's doing
That could
the
still be
DLS
filed.
submittal right now.
What would be the funding source?
I would continue to deficit spend the,
So I can't
You
support
can't.
that.
yeah, which is,
can or
but it's
can't?
already deficit
Can't.
spent, so.
Yeah.
Because we still have some funding available, additional funding available in the assistant town accountant position.
Can I just be clear about something? Is the concern that the special town meeting is going to be a super spreader or that people won't be there? Because my concern, hearing from the Board of Health, is they're saying, let's postpone the special town meeting where everyone's going to be masked and somewhat social distance, but we're not going to impose a mask mandate on
Okay.
private businesses. Like, there are places in Southampton where people are not wearing masks indoors, and there are hundreds of people going through those doors that seem like much high risk, more high risk than a special town meeting. So that's where they're asking us to postpone something that doesn't seem as high risk as other things in town.
So
That's why I asked the question,
Yeah,
frankly.
I would agree with Joy. And I understand the Board of Health is looking at this from a unique angle than we are, and I respect that. But if they had taken the steps to say, okay, we're going to go as far as Easthampton, and we're going to institute mask mandate in town in all public spaces where you can't social distance, okay, we're beefing this up. You guys are seeing something that the rest of us aren't seeing, but you're just continuing what's already in place. And so I say, I mean, speaking for myself, not the whole committee, but this committee makes up 10% of the required attendance. So, you know, I would suggest we move forward with it. If we end up not having quorum, then we don't have quorum, but I think there's too many, I'm not in favor of deficit spending, period, unless it's for snow removal. I understand that we can do it, I understand it's in the past, but I'm never going to support that individually, and I'm happy to be outvoted on those things. But it's on the books, we're moving forward, and I think at some point, we have to take control of our lives back and move forward. Now, if 50 folks don't show up and we can't vote, Chris had a valid point, we don't want to meet the minimum threshold.
No, I
You know, we want more than that, but
I mean, we've got important things on the town meeting warrant. I mean, you know, having the bare minimum is not, you know, out of a town this size. And
Right.
if normally we have, I mean, even at Labrie, we had at least 150 or thereabouts, right?
And we have a higher percentage of seniors than would be at any establishment at any time in Southampton.
Right.
And the concept that we are the government putting on this event,
Right.
I really want us to think
I
about
would
safety.
be in favor, I know it's going to be cold, but I would support moving it outside. I think we have to have the meeting. If that means a week throwing up pup tents and using arbor funds to continue the continuity of government, and space heaters, but I think we need to move, so.
The deck of the church that used to be Opa-Opas in the back.
You can't fit 50
true.
people on that thing.
Well,
And the other side of that is, does the select board support health and public safety?
Absolutely, so give me an alternative, move it outside.
Postpone it until the
Well, that's your
numbers drop.
stance, that's your stance, and I
moving it outside
respectfully
at
disagree with
at
that.
7
Move it outside.
PM.
You
it's-
can't move it outside at night. We'd have to
Nighttime, I mean,
reschedule the
you know.
meeting,
Can't do it at night outside.
do it at night outside.
You know, I think, I actually mentioned to the Board of Health Chair that I'd heard that people were going outside of Southampton to shop because they were going to towns where there was a mask mandate. So I let her know about that and encouraged her to bring it up at the meeting. So I'm disappointed that the Board of Health did not implement a mask mandate when we have so many people that have COVID in this town.
It was brought up at the meeting.
Right, but I'm not going to use that as a reason why to not support, so I do feel like we should listen to the Board of Health. They are our, advisors when it comes to health matters. I certainly think that people won't come. The whole point of this is to get community input.
Right.
So I don't think people will come if there's been a huge spike in town, and I don't want to be responsible for a super spreader event either, right before the holidays. And if there is any way we can delay any of the funding things that have to happen and come up with a more creative plan, I'm all for it, even if it means doing things that we wouldn't normally do for the sake of public safety, which is exactly my point about some of these articles.
The gallery's having its 20th anniversary, it's not a plug, this Sunday, and it's our first reception since a year ago, March. And masks are going to be required, and we're literally going to turn people away at the door because of geographic, social distancing. And I'm not looking forward to it, but life is life.
Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of people are, no matter whether they're going into establishments in town, they're choosing to wear their own mask, but it's not because it's been required.
I think this is also different than last year, because last year, I'm pretty sure my kid was still in hybrid schedule. Like, she was going to school only like 2 days a week around this time last year. It was reduced. I mean, now she's in school full time. Those teachers are in that school full time.
Right.
And it just seems like too much mixed messaging from the the town if we're saying, oh, we're going to postpone the town meeting, but all the kids and all the teachers should be in school, and the private entities don't have to have a mask mandate.
That is,
And I think the difference between now and a year ago is the vaccine's available.
Exactly.
And-
Yeah.
And I think those that want it have gotten it, those that don't, I don't know how much more education is going to convince them to go and get it.
Well, there have been a lot, speaking as someone who's giving vaccines right now, there have been a lot of people who have come in recently because of the new variant, because a lot of reasons. A lot of people, it was only 2 weeks ago that this governor opened it up to everybody under the age of 65 for the booster. So I think that a lot of people are getting vaccinated.
But isn't the latest results that came out from the COVID update said that the town of Southampton itself is at an 83% vaccination rate?
I think
I
that's
mean, how much,
100.
but we're never going to get there, though.
Yeah.
I agree with you, we should be at 100, but we're just never going to get there,
I think we should be higher than 83, I'll tell you that.
yeah. But I think part of the issue, if I think what I had heard too from earlier discussion, is that our rate right now with this 50 or 51 cases in town is significantly more than what it was even just 2 weeks ago,
It's
right?
about tripled in the last 2 weeks.
Tripled,
Triple.
Well, it's true, because a family of 5 where one individual gets it,
right.
the entire family is forced to quarantine with them,
Sure.
and then, of course, they're all going to get it, so now there's 5, so of course the
Yeah.
numbers are going to go up. So you got 50 people that did it, and there were only 10 families, and they all trace back to the same root source, but nobody wants to talk about that or go after that individual. Instead, let's suspend our entire life and just deficit spend and violate Mass General Law and postpone. That being said, I agree, if the elderly population, if they feel vulnerable, they should not attend, and we shouldn't force it. But we have put ourselves into a situation where if we postpone the meeting, then we are willingly violating Mass General Law.
Not if we come up with another plan that doesn't involve deficit spending, if it's possible. And don't forget, those 51 people have reached out or been in contact with a number of people. They don't go as a unit places.
Correct.
They have had contact with multiple people over the course of their contagious period.
But was that a result of a huge national holiday that everyone celebrated their families? Like, it wasn't a result of just living their normal lives.
What do you mean?
Like, contracting COVID wasn't from going to special town meeting or going to Big Y or we don't know. I'm assuming it's from Thanksgiving. I'm assuming that the influx of cases is from Thanksgiving. Like,
It's a fair assumption, I would think.
that it's not just
Holidays.
because people were just living their normal lives. It's because they were getting together and they were not as careful as they were supposed to.
Or people traveled, I mean, over
Yeah, and
over
they
the holiday.
traveled, or they traveled.
Possibly, yeah.
I just don't think, I'm not opposed to postponing it. I just think there has to be like consistency across the board with what we're doing.
Yeah,
It's
well-
not,
Well, and maybe the Board of Health will decide in another week to meet again and have some updates too. I mean, they said that they weren't meeting until January, but that doesn't mean that they can't meet again if they need to.
Right.
Can I ask the police chief on his opinion? I mean, your public safety. You're gonna be at the,
Come on up, Ian.
No comment.
I don't know.
I don't ever want to, if the Board of Health makes a decision, I don't want to be contrary to the Board of Health, you know? I do believe in safeguards such as masks, and I do believe that they work. Obviously, that would be a safeguard in this situation, that everyone would have to wear one, but as far as my personal opinions, I keep that personal.
okay,
I just don't have a profession.
That's fair.
just asking on a
And that
professional
was the
basis.
order of priorities
Yeah.
that I read to you.
Yeah.
I mean, the first, they didn't say absolutely postpone the meeting. They said, if
Yeah.
you can't, then let's do this. If you can't do this, then and when you do this, in terms of, getting two separate spaces to keep people further apart, keeping the agenda smaller so that we get through the meeting quicker, and reduce
Yeah,
some
so
of the
just to be
exposure.
clear,
I mean,
Board of-
there were some contingencies
Board of
there.
Health did not make a decision.
No,
We are
they did
not
not.
reacting to a decision. They said, here are 3 options in terms of our
And
priority.
it was really
It's
up to us.
Figure out what we're comfortable living with, so we're,
And their priority 1 recommendation was to cancel the town meeting.
right.
It's to postpone it,
Postpone it.
correct.
Postpone.
Postpone it, yeah.
Yes.
Can we at least look at the articles again and determine if there's a way to postpone it without deficit spending?
I was just going to suggest that. So if we look at the articles where we know that we have got to have money available for a particular thing, so I'm looking at, I guess it's number 4 and 5, accounting expenses, let's see. From previous, so that's actually, accounting expenses, that would be something that is not, that's already happened. That's a cleanup thing, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so number 5 then would be the vendor to help with the tax recap, right? That payment there.
Yep.
So number 5 is one. Employment advertising is water under the bridge already. Web maintenance was going to be a preventive thing. Voting machine, we hope we could get in time. Tree removal, if we met in February, it's still winter, that's when we'll have more trees. Ambulance debt, when is that due to be paid?
April, so we'd still have time for
April?
February, March.
All right, and then the biggest one is Article 11, vendor for 21 financial book closure. That's really the one, really? Because the recycling containers, we've already been told that we would probably have to pass that over because we can't
Right.
fund that. We can't do that.
We
So
do
that was,
not have retained earnings.
that was going to be a definite pass over, right? And then the ambulance staffing, dump truck, plow truck, and then the 3 CPC articles. What about the unpaid bills? That can wait?
It can wait.
So the 2 that are in police department operating, the other ones that were internal transfers.
Can I ask you a question about that? Do all the towns, other towns, require town meeting vote to transfer between line items of a department like police? Like, why doesn't the department head have the authority to move line items within a budget?
Depends on how the annual budget is voted. And we vote it by line item, so,
Voted by department, really?
yeah, but it's done
I know.
by line item. If it was done by subcategory or subtotal, then yes, the department head would have the authority to move those funds around within their own budget, but we don't do that.
Why don't we? Okay, well,
So
maybe.
something we can think about for the future, maybe for the annual meeting. All right, so it looks like, if I'm understanding this, it looks to me like there are two articles that, should we go ahead and have the meeting and try to do these things, we would be doing some deficit spending, and that's 5 and 11, right? And that total of those two is somewhere around close to $32,000 altogether, the two of those. 35 at the most, thereabouts.
Is there any other mechanism for, or available funds for that you can think of, Ed?
They'd all have to be voted on at this time of year.
Right, is there any other way of funding it without deficit spending so that it could wait till another time?
No, it would all have to be through a town meeting at this point in time.
Was there any money left in that retirement contributory to cover the tax recap part, for example? I know we took some funds from there, but did we use it all?
I think there's a small amount left, like
If
really
we had the
small.
$1,500 left
But
for the
still a
tax.
transfer, it still has to be
Yeah, it
voted
still has to be
on.
transferred.
Yeah, I think that's our issue, is there may be money within the existing budget that we could
Yeah.
use.
Still need to-
It's not new money, but it's, we're stuck with the whole movement of
Well,
things
yeah.
without having a vote.
Yeah.
So that would mean that,
Robert has something.
I mean,
And I would just say, I mean, I'm also, one of my hesitancy is that, and the expenditure and revenue reports are improving every 2 weeks. They're getting better. But you still don't have our ending numbers aren't there to show you your starting numbers, so
Right,
right,
right. Eventually, we have to get
It's
a
a-
revenue report that actually predicts revenue
Right.
instead of just records it.
it's an awful lot of faith
Right,
to put on municipality.
right.
no, it is. Robert,
Barbara
thoughts?
Floyd, College Highway. Article 14 requires bonding, and there was concern in early discussions today of everybody touching the box and handling that one box all the way down a road, down another road, down another road. The other alternative, that article being to be considered, is people lining up with their little ballot sticking in a slot 6 feet apart. That's what other towns do anyway.
Yeah, it's a good alternative.
Mhm. Okay.
Or putting it in this annual town meeting when it goes up against other capital expenses.
Right, yeah. Well, that's just it. I mean, even if, suppose we postpone and we did a February special town meeting, I would still say then we would probably have half of this amount, or some reduced amount of that, on a February warrant, and the rest carry on to our annual town meeting in May. I mean, that would be my assumption, that we wouldn't have as many on here as we do now, perhaps, but. So, the transfer to the vendor, so number 5, that was the 1560 on the tax recap. Now, we're able to pay the work that's just been done, or this is partly covering that?
We will pay it because we owe that.
And can it come out of accounting wages or somewhere? I mean, or is that,
It'll get paid out of accounting expenses.
yeah? And would that put us in a deficit
It's
situation?
already in a deficit.
It already is?
Yeah.
So there we are, John.
Oh, I know, no, I know, I mean,
Are we able to reach out to DOR,
to do what?
For what?
get a waiver on any, deficit spending, or is it like against the law?
You can't use ARA money
Basically,
for this.
You're not,
On the whole.
it's against the law. You're not supposed to do it.
Yeah,
ARPA money.
So any work that would be done for the Schedule A, how would we pay for that?
It's the same thing, it would come out of accounting expenses.
Okay, so the real one that would be held up completely would be the big ticket number of closing out the 21 books.
Correct.
The 20,
Yep.
isn't it the 2020?
21 books.
21 books,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which, until that's done, we won't have
We don't
starting
have an
figures
accurate
for
picture
this
on
year.
22.
Right.
Right. So that was the impetus for trying to keep it moving forward so
Yeah.
that we don't wait, recognizing
We
the
don't have figures for what, John?
issue, the beginning figures rolling over to begin
Right. You
revolving
have to
funds,
have-
whatever else.
Someone's got to
FY
certify
22.
our ending numbers to start
Yeah,
the
to
beginning
start the
numbers on
beginning.
these reports.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, on revenue, all you do is look at the tax percentage. I mean, it's where it's
yeah,
supposed to
but
be.
there's other, there's many of, from various committees, commissions have got revolving funds, and they have no idea where they ended up last year to start this year.
Mhm.
And so that's been one of the confusion and questions. If we,
So if we were just to focus on, 5 and 11, whatever those two are,
Yeah.
do we have to, and we say we want to pass on every single other one, do we have to take a vote on every one? We couldn't do an initial, we want to do one lump sum vote recognizing, in the interest of public safety and expedite everyone's departure here, we only are asking you to vote on 2 questions, so we want to propose a question that we bypass all the others except for 5 and 11, or whatever the 2
well,
numbers
if you're
are.
gonna do that, you may as well,
But now
it gets
you're
into
down-
the problem of,
Yeah, but if you,
There's a concept, there's a concept about, I forget the name of it, and I mentioned here in a meeting or
Consent.
two before, an agenda where you have 5 items, 5 articles,
Yeah.
and we're going to lump them together. And consent agenda. We don't do that because we have time for the meeting, we only meet 2 or 3 times a year, and we just don't use it. Other towns do. I don't know if it's the reverse, whether we can do that, passing over. That's something it would have to check with Copeland and Page, K&E, and see what they were thought. I've never seen that done before or heard it done before.
but your earlier point was, even if we, one by one, say, pass over,
Right.
anybody in the audience can stand up and say,
well,
we
that's
wanna
what,
vote
that's why I was trying to get a motion that says, of the 23 articles, we're one vote to pass over 21 of them. So it's a third, it's a.
There aren't that
2
many, first of all.
However-
There's
however
16.
many there are. However
Don't
many
scare
there are.
everybody
Then somebody
watching.
can object
There's a
to it or
2-minute
try to
discussion.
amend it, and then it can get chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if everybody there wants to expedite and get out because they don't want to be there, there'll be less
I'll give you
pushback.
that. I don't know of a way, I'm pretty astute in finding what other towns are doing through the gavel line, it's called, what moderators have no time or, too much time. They get on the chat line, and I do read it daily almost. And I haven't come across that.
But that's an interesting suggestion.
So if we postpone this until February, we can't enter into an arrangement with one of these CPA firms until
that
we
time.
technically have the money in hand.
Right.
We think we do, we know we do in a way, but we don't have it approved, right?
Right.
So that completely stops us from even letting them start work, even though they wouldn't probably be billing us until
Correct.
end of February, right?
Correct.
Ay, ay, ay.
And if we were to pass over each one, it wouldn't take too long.
But what's,
Well,
If we had to do it one by one,
Yeah.
it wouldn't take, an inordinate amount of time.
Would you be, is it possible, and if so, would you be opposed? to
No,
some-
under the circumstances.
No, somebody making a motion. What are the 2 article numbers?
5 and 11.
5 and 11. If, as soon as we start, we make a motion to go out of order and take number 5 first, and then number 11.
Yes,
So we at least get those 2 out of the way.
The town votes yea or nay on that. In
Yes.
fact, I do call it every meeting. Is there a reason to
Right.
take, in fact, we have it in our bylaws where the moderator cannot make that decision, which the moderator can do in other towns.
Yep.
So that would be a vote.
So at
Yeah,
least move
correct.
those 2 right to the beginning,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then, get the vote and get potentially, if, We could get this down to a 6-minute thing, in and out in 6 minutes.
Okay. Can I ask a question? I know you said that people will come and they'll vote the items that they're interested in and they leave. Now, if we go below 50 at any point before we finish going through all of these passovers, does that negate the entire meeting?
No.
Okay.
We can go below 50 until somebody points a call to order, point of order. So if we vote all in favor, aye, opposed, nay, the ayes have it, passes by majority, we could have 45 people.
Okay.
And we could go through all the articles until we do a count. And then the count is 30, 18, 48 votes, and then somebody says, okay, look, we don't have a quorum. The vote counts for that article, but we can't continue.
Okay.
So
Then we have
anything
to
previously voted would count.
Right.
You can't-
Okay.
Then we have to
Okay.
postpone to a time certain, or if there isn't enough business worthwhile, simply dissolve the meeting.
No, that's another way. Yeah,
At least try and get the 2 items out of the way.
get the two, yes, the two top ones.
Okay.
Can I ask an unrelated question or somewhat
The
related?
whole thing was for the whole park grant in the first place, guys. I mean, I would want to do the CPC ones too, myself. But
Well,
anyway, that's where the problem
Chris, I'm
goes.
open to that. If
That's where the
everybody
problem
else-
is that once you start picking and choosing and cherry picking here, it's like, well, why not this one and why not that
Right,
one?
exactly.
Yeah, that's,
You've opened up the can of worms at
does,
that
it
point
does.
in time.
I mean, the only rationale for 5 and 11 is the deficit spending.
Right.
That is the only rationale for that, right? So, yeah, Rini, sorry.
The people that are working at town meeting, they're election workers, right?
Yes.
Did we ever approve their PCF? I don't think they came back,
No.
Lucy sent it back to us.
No.
Is that a problem?
They'll just be paid at the old rate?
That's a problem then.
All right, guys, I'm a little stumped myself. What's anybody thinking here? We have to make a decision tonight, pretty much.
my 2 cents is, once we're in the room, if we do go with the town meeting Tuesday, then my point is, let's just get through as many articles as we can. You know, the damage is
Right.
done.
Well,
We're here. Let's do it.
And understanding that, though, I would like to prioritize 5, 11, and then because it always seems to work this way, the CPC stuff always
CPA
falls
could
to
come
the
in,
end.
exactly.
But bring that up.
Yeah.
Because it is a December 31st deadline, so if we can get that out in the third vote, and then fall back to maybe third, fourth, 5, just take them all as a group.
Go down in order after
I
that.
will split the vote for that last one on the Parks Commission. It's a little,
I'd just like to point out a little bit of lack of logic, frankly. I don't support it. I think we should put it off. I think we're in the middle between Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's, and I just feel like it's irresponsible. But you said the damage is already done. You said, let's get on with life. We heard about the difference in opinion about the Board of Health's addressing things. It's irrelevant. Their recommendation is to postpone it, the number one recommendation, so I can't support it. That's where I am.
And when you say you want to split the vote, I mean, what? Not take 15, 16, 17 as a package, but three individual
whatever
votes?
is 15A, deal with A separately, B separately, C separately.
Yeah, we usually do for
Divide the question like we do with the budget.
we usually do for CPC.
We vote for A, discuss and vote for A, that's out of the way. Vote, discuss,
Right.
discuss and vote B, that's out of the way. And then C, we don't have to vote for all three because we voted for each one individually.
Right, but in this case, we made them 3 separate articles.
Right, there's three.
Three, yeah. Well, I'm dividing the question into 3 separate articles. That's the moderator's prerogative, and I believe it's confusing the way it is.
So you've already divided it? Because
No.
the way it's in the final version is 3 separate articles.
No, I'm talking about the last one, the park one, where it's a separate article.
Yeah?
I intend to divide that,
What do you mean divide it? How?
A, B, and C.
Which is?
So discuss,
I don't, 15 is the canal,
oh,
16.
no, I threw the number out of my
Oh,
top
okay.
of my head.
Oh,
Sorry, the Parks Commission one.
Yeah, okay.
That has an A component, a B component, and a C component.
Oh, well, yeah, for the town to accept Conant Park as
So we're going to vote, we're going to discuss and
The park
vote A,
commission, okay.
and then
Yes,
we're
I
going to
see.
discuss and
Okay.
vote B,
For
and
the
then
park
we're...
commission to accept the park as a park.
If it doesn't go as an entirety, it doesn't count.
Yeah,
It's a no
Well,
vote.
all three, but for discussion and voting, all three have to pass anyway.
yeah, but if you,
Yeah, but if one of those doesn't
Vote
pass,
favorable.
the article
That's
doesn't
my
pass.
intention, we'll discuss
A,
this
B,
tomorrow.
C, yeah.
I mean, that's why we had to go through state to get the
believe he's
language
gonna do
approved.
this.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
we had to have this
We didn't
approved
make
by
up
the
this
state.
language on that one, believe me. That was the state's
Break it
required
apart, and then
language.
it's not approved.
Yeah,
Okay, got
that's,
it.
that's,
It is.
Got
that's too risky. myself.
Teamwork.
All right, okay, so, wow. Okay, I think we need a motion on the table, and, let's see. Go-
But, point of order, we
Yes.
only need a motion if we're going to alter the course. Because the meeting's already approved, so if, to
Well-
Maureen's point, if we're going to, the only motion to make would be to postpone the meeting.
Correct, yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion to postpone the meeting until a date in February, before school vacation.
Okay. Can I have a second? Anybody?
Okay.
Well, I'll second it just for point of discussion. Getting it on there. All right. No more discussion? All right. Shall we have a vote then? The motion's on the table to postpone it until February. All those in favor?
Aye.
I think I'm going to go aye. All those opposed?
No?
No.
No.
Okay, the vote is 3 no, 2 aye. The motion fails, right? And the meeting is still scheduled for the 14th. Okay. All right. With that, do we need to go through the summary and the motion language tonight? What do we need to do with this?
It's-
Ed?
It's just there for, if, you know, I will post it tomorrow. If you see any, you know, misspellings or anything,
Yep.
shoot them to me by tomorrow morning, and I'll
Yep.
change them.
There was one I had sent you about a motion. Did you catch that one?
Yes,
You changed that one? Okay.
yeah, and I changed all those
Yeah. Okay.
capitalizations.
But there was one that had a motion in the wrong one.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so with that,
So could I
Yes.
just understand the process, and, because I am in favor of moving 5, 11, 15, 16, 17 to the front. What exactly do we have to do? I'm guessing there has to be a motion made. I'm not sure, and if it has to be in writing in duplicate form,
for,
to understand
to make that motion at town meeting, to start out of order and start with Articles 5, 11, whatever.
By tradition, the select board reads the articles, the motion under the articles. Anybody in the audience, in fact, one year, all the select board refused to read a particular motion, and somebody in the audience stood up and read it.
So when we go to read the first motion, if we
So that's
say
your
we want to
motion to
go out
pass
of
over.
order.
Your motion is not the one that's typed out, it's the one that you'll say, I motion to pass over Article such and such.
But
And
I thought you
somebody-
mentioned that we
No, I'm
could put up a motion to say we would like to go out of order.
Right.
Oh,
and
for
take
that one,
Article
yeah.
5.
You don't need that in writing. No, because I asked the meeting
And
if
there's one
there's
of us needs to-
anybody that sees a need to rearrange the order, and that's when you would stand up and say, Ms. Moderator, I motion to move Article 5 and 11 up front first.
Okay,
Okay,
15,
Okay.
16, 17.
yeah,
The writing comes in amendments,
yeah,
okay,
okay.
because we have to vote on it, and the town clerk has to put it in the minutes.
okay.
So we
that's what
need
would
that
end
in
up doing.
writing.
So those 5, 11, whatever, 15, 16, whatever they are.
17, yeah.
And then go back to the normal order to the extent we can do that, to the extent we have a quorum.
And at any time, you just simply say, I want to do this, help me. And I'll give you hints for the procedure, and we'll do
Okay.
it.
Well, you like to yell at people.
Can we
No.
revote?
No. Okay, are we ready? Are we done with that subject?
And then one other question, traditionally,
I say, can
well,
we revote?
except for our outside meetings with COVID, the select board has alternated reading the motions. There will be one microphone on the table, so
Boy.
does the select board want to alternate or designate one person to read the motions?
I think one person should read.
Yeah,
I think one person should read.
probably one person, I would say as well. Going to draw straws on that one, guys?
Refer to the chair.
Sure, the chair could give it a whirl.
I'll stand by with a bottle of water for you.
Yeah, I'm getting better, I'm bringing my water. I might need a big container for town meeting. Yeah, no, let's do that, not alter, alternate, yep. Okay, next agenda item. Let's go back up to this, what we had under the first article, under the first item under the new business. Initial discussion, land for town purchase consideration, 217 College Highway. And just to note, this is property literally kind of diagonally across from Town Hall here. It's a house and lot, about 1.3 acres, I believe, that's for sale. The Realtor contacted the town, contacted me, saying, would the town be interested in this? Said we hadn't even had a thought about it yet, and we could begin having a discussion about it. I did pass it on to Housing and Open Space just for their information as well. The one thing about the property is that it certainly backs up onto the current police station, Old Town Hall parking lot area. The land goes back quite a ways, I understand, and it's next door to a small parcel that we currently do own as the town. So there was some question from the Realtor if the town might be interested in expanding that section. So I don't have any much more information than that, frankly, to even really start much of a discussion, but I wanted to at least put it on the table and let you know that that's something that's out there as we look at properties. Yes, John?
I have some comments on it, and I don't know what the appropriate vessel or committee is to explore this, but just some facts. So 217 College Highway does consist of 1.3 acres. The town already owns 215 College Highway, which is 0.29 acres, and the town owns, as we know, 8 East Street, which is 0.85 acres, for a cumulative, all-inclusive, 2.34 acres. 210 College Highway currently sits on 7.5 acres, of which I have to assume that more than half of it is taken up by Town Hall and the empty fields in the back. So if I was to isolate the fire station here, I believe 2.34 acres, all-inclusive, is certainly attractive if I think about the addition to Town Hall that was done, the old Town Hall on 8 East Street. Even though, the garage looks wonderful, taking that off, acquiring that property at 217 at whatever to be negotiated, acquiring the property, demoing the property, making adjustments to the Town Hall addition has got to be less than $1 million, which, based on the study that Mr. Kanicki provided to us previously, was just the starting price for excavation up here for ledge, which does not exist across the street. That if we could acquire the property and demo the property for under $500,000, in theory, under the old proposal, that leaves us another $500,000 to help restore the existing town hall as part of one bigger package. I have no idea what to do with the remaining fire station once we move, but it also negates the 5-mile driving radius because it's right across the street, so in theory it would fall in the same thing. So I definitely think it should be explored.
Okay. The only, I had seen an asking price on it, and I think it's possibly changed now. The asking price, I think, was around $360,000 for it, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds right.
But I think there was some, as with many of the properties, I think along College Highway, septic is oftentimes an issue, and I was told anyway that the owners were probably going to have to do some septic improvement, as part of the sale, so just for whatever that's worth, and I have no idea.
Could potentially reduce the cost of the
Good,
purchase.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, so, I don't know, and from looking at, I just looked at the assessor's map, and it looks like, even though you see the, excuse me, the house right here on College Highway, the lot itself, the way I saw it anyway, is, it looks like it extends right down kind of parallel to the parking lot and almost ends right around the back of the town, the old Town Hall Police Station. So it's kind of a lengthy lot in that regard. I mean, it's a little bit deceiving when you look at it from the front, but anyway, and I don't know that there's any, what more we can really do about it, but I mean, yeah, I just wanted to at least bring it out there and see, you know, how could we start exploring it? I don't know, we'd have to get, well, I mean, there's grant money out there to buy land. Actually, one of those is coming up in January, heaven forbid.
Well,
You know, borrowing and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's all the options there, but I don't know how quickly the property's moving. You know, so many properties are on the market for a short time and then they're gone. But this one seems to have been around for a couple weeks already.
and I know with this, ultimately, it's the Board of Selectmen's, it's the Select
Select
Board's, Select Board's decision to vote, right, to acquire property or anything like that.
Right.
And it's kind of one of these times where I wish the Public Safety Committee was farther along than where it is. But, I mean, this in theory, I mean, based on the fact that West Springfield is spending $6 million on a park for a school, out of their ARPA funds, for us to enhance public safety and the quality of life to the citizens, you know, there's got to be an argument there that probably, assuming that we're still on the select board, when the IRS comes knocking, we might be able to defend it. To your point, I think it's a unique opportunity, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure who the person to explore it is,
Exactly.
or what committee it might be.
Exactly. And like I say, like I had just passed the information off to both Housing and Open Space as two that I thought might be interested in it for their own purposes too. So I don't know, Ed, do you have some guidance and thoughts about what we should think about, or how would we try to pursue something? I mean, just to at least contact the Realtor and say, there is a level of interest, we're not sure what we can do, but,
Yeah, I would suggest that.
yeah,
And, you know, let me know the contact, I'll be happy to reach out.
okay. And
It
maybe
would be
there's a.
Darcy Gasparini, who's Taylor, who's representing
It's
the-
Taylor, yeah, Taylor Agency.
I agree with John. I would support looking into it. It's egress from two major roads in town. It may not be a big enough lot for both, but it might be big enough to
Might get a start.
improve, to have it separate. I mean, there's a lot of options, and I think we should explore it, for sure.
Okay, so we'll get you the contact of
Thank
that,
you.
and you can reach out and just find out. Maybe the price has changed a little bit too, but we'll see where that goes. All right, so the second item right here is the Hendrick land donation. And this was just informational, and I don't remember if I forwarded that email in. I think I did, but I've got to pull that up.
We got it all.
Yeah.
Did you all get it? Okay.
Yes.
So basically, this is the property at the corner of Cold Spring and Rattle Hill. Is that right? That Ted Hendrick and family were working on donating to the town. And they've been working for the last 2 years, pretty much, I think, with various assistance from, I think, Kestrel and various others to go through the state tax program to try and get a conservation restriction and all those kinds of things done and do a donation to the town on this. And from what we've understood, the situation has come to its conclusion, and that is been done. And I think the next step, I'm assuming, we've already accepted this land at a town meeting vote
Right.
over a year ago. So this is really just informational. I guess we were not sure or I was not sure who might hold the conservation restriction on this.
And I emailed Paula, and there isn't according to her, there's no conservation restriction on this.
Uh-huh, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it'll just be working out the deed between their attorney and our town council.
Okay, okay. And would this fall as something managed, though, by Concom, or? How does, who?
Unless it goes to, you know, with the restriction in the deed that it be managed by conservation, I would say it goes to the inhabitants of the town of West Springfield.
Inhabitants of the
but-
town, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, anyway, just to say that,
There was a,
yeah, I'm not sure. The Hendricks have gone through a long process. We appreciate their determination and commitment to doing this, and it's a very nice corner property that will pretty close to the area of Clearwater Woodland in that general area, not contiguous, but in that general neighborhood. So, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the number of acres on that, but thanks very much to the Hendrick family for making this happen. And like I said, we had already voted at town meeting to accept this donation of land. So that will add to our open space inventory, most likely. Okay, next one up, I think, is the draft of a new bylaw on naming rights. And Francine, I'm going to turn that over to you. You guys have got it in your,
No, this is a replacement to what's in your packet.
okay.
Everybody take one, pass it down. There's only been one, we agreed at the last meeting to be more specific by inserting the word structures, that it was not limited to buildings and public lands, it was building structures and public lands, so that changed. And then the other change that was not on the version you had in your packet is on the second page, section 2, where it says proposed names or designations will be submitted to the select board, and we didn't specify, but we are now, that they will be done in writing, and that the proposal must include a justification for the name recognition that's being requested. And that's the only change. Everything else remains the same, so that we can, if you're okay with these.
Did you get my email that I offered suggestions? I sent it to the chair and Ed. I actually edited and made some suggestions.
Have you seen it?
No.
No?
Oh.
I mean, I can,
Do you remember offhand what they were?
Yeah, I mean, I can go through them pretty quickly if you want.
Sure.
I have it right here.
Why don't we?
okay.
First of all, bylaw, the second word should be hyphenated like the rest of the document.
Where are you?
Right up at the second word, this bylaw.
Right,
Section 1.
section 1. The rest of the document uses the hyphenated bylaw. No, doesn't it? I pretty much, I think I saw that.
We agreed,
Well, it's got it in both places, so you're just talking about it being
okay,
consistent.
it's going to be consistent, eliminate, yes, okay.
Okay, one or the other,
Gotcha.
really.
Yeah.
And then where it says 5 public lands, it says bridges. I mean, I added bridges because that's what drove this a little bit, but do you think structures, is that what the hope is, that would?
But that was the intent of using the word structure,
Okay,
was, a bridge is a structure, I just assumed that would just go.
okay, because you do actually say playgrounds, parks, courts, athletic fields, intersections, medians, but you don't mention bridges, and a lot of bridges are named after veterans. So I didn't know if it would be worth actually
Okay.
saying bridges.
We'll put it in.
Or it could be in the definition under D, could say public building structure, any structure.
Edifice or other.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
I just wanted to
But
see if you
why-
wanted to be
yes,
explicit
yeah.
about adding
Yeah,
bridges.
okay, very good point.
Okay,
I did have a few suggestions under number 2 on the second page. Where the sentence ends, any proposed name or designation of any public building or public land shall be submitted to the select board for its review and recommendation as to the appropriateness thereof.
And
It says the justification may include the proposal must include justification for the naming recognition. I just wrote, the select board may establish standards and criteria for consideration of proposed names and designations following a duly advertised public hearing and with a letter of support from the Southampton Historical Commission. The select board shall forward its recommendation to the special and/or annual town meeting. So I'm assuming, are we going to, I mean, if we're going to be setting this up, isn't there going to be some criteria? So I just inserted the select board may establish standards and criteria for consideration of proposed names and designations.
well, I think if we're going to establish criteria, it needs to be part of this bylaw, rather than,
Yeah, yeah.
it would appear arbitrary to do it after the fact and whenever somebody.
Right.
So it either is, I know you're using the word may, but you may do it sometimes and may not do it other times, and just looking for consistency.
Well, but you're establishing the criteria, you're doing that once,
Right.
but, I
Okay.
mean, the
Yeah,
criteria.
that makes sense. I mean, the whole point of this is that there's some guidance.
The criteria to be
But the
followed,
sentence
so
right now says the proposal must include justification for the naming recognition.
right?
But I'm
Okay.
hoping that that's standardized.
All right, so based on
Yeah, I think there should be some kind of
the
criteria.
Based on his-
following criteria, and then we're going to have to list it out.
And then it says, following a duly advertised public hearing and with the advice of the Southampton Historical Commission. I think it should be more formalized. I think it should be with a letter of support from the Southampton Historical Commission.
Okay, and with,
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why the reference to the Southampton Historical Commission? You haven't said in pertaining to historical structures or buildings, so why would you ask for a ruling from the Historical Commission if you're naming a brand-new building or structure that it isn't historical?
you're right,
Yeah, that's a good point.
you're right.
So if it does pertain to an historical.
Yeah, and so Southampton Historical Commission, if applicable,
Yeah, something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
you need a committee to
Yep.
do this stuff.
good point.
And,
Okay.
and just on number two there,
Yes,
any possibility of eliminating special so that it has to be at an annual town meeting when we know we have large attendance?
okay.
That's all.
Annual town
Yeah.
meeting,
Sure,
that's fine. Okay,
okay. Anything else, Randy?
I would prefer it be a hearing as opposed to a meeting. So like under D, where it says a duly advertised public, my preference would be that it would be
Meeting?
a hearing, because that requires it to be
Posted.
publicized and formalized.
so you would prefer meeting?
Hearing.
Hearing,
Hearing.
Public
so that it
hearing.
was advertised in
that's
the
what's in
newspaper
there.
and all that stuff.
Okay.
I think it's really
Yeah,
important. I think there's a lot of problems when it comes to
Here.
naming things, and I think the
Okay.
more we formalize it and
All right.
standardize it, the better.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah, and that comes up again under number 5.
Okay,
It says public hearing slash,
Yep.
public meeting
Okay.
slash hearing.
gave us an option, but, okay.
okay.
All
Val?
right, so we're taking meeting out
Yeah.
in all of those instances.
Yep.
We have to work on establishing some criteria, which I think to some, well, we'll have to do it. Okay,
I think this bylaw so far addresses the process, but it doesn't necessarily address the criteria.
okay.
I have a question.
There's one, and number 3 is kind of a criteria, but, yeah.
Right?
Does this apply to lands that are donated?
Yeah, right.
Well, lands that are donated, oftentimes, people would name them themselves before they get donated, I think, but I don't know that.
Sometimes that's the condition of,
Yeah,
Yes, that's a
Of-
condition of the donation, so I just want to make
property.
sure,
yeah,
I mean,
it's valid to ask,
That-
we might mention that, yeah.
yeah, that
Donated land,
are exempt from this.
And I thought, didn't we exclude from this anything that fell under the school committee?
yeah.
But maybe I'm just missing it.
I think that was one of the issues that came up because there was a naming that happened by the park department. And the question is, who decides? Is it their own sort of, I mean, does school get to decide for the schools? Does the park get to decide for the park if they want to name a field or?
well, under number 4, it does list
The naming.
the ability to do that, but only for portions of,
Yeah, by the department or
Yeah,
agency having
okay.
jurisdiction over the same.
yes.
So naming or designation of individual rooms, areas, or sub-areas within a building structure.
Right.
Okay.
And then it has to constitute less than 20%, 25% of the public building space.
Okay, I
Okay.
think that's clear.
So some of that, I think, maybe is some of the criteria, maybe, that just has to be
Yeah.
repackaged in terms of how that presents.
Yeah.
And I think, having a complimentary sort of handout or something that, with a checkbox,
Yeah.
that kind of
Mhm. Okay.
helps to standardize it would help.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, good. So bylaws committee, back to work, back to the drawing board.
Oh, I think it's a good one. You got it from another town initially, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, this is borrowed from another town, part of it, anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll bring it back.
All right. Moving on. Where are we in our agenda here? Sorry.
COVID-19.
COVID-19 update. What more can we say? We think we've
I think we've
covered that.
covered it, yes. Our numbers are rising. We're up to 50 positives here in Southampton, so, and that's kind of indicative of the statewide numbers and our surrounding community numbers also.
Right. Okay. All right. CARES Act update. I think the one thing I think I'm questioning is just from what we heard from the school, if they're not clear on what they were able to spend. I think the last meeting, we had finally heard back from the state that they
Yes.
were okay.
I thought I had sent that to Bobby, but
I
I'll
would,
double check.
I wasn't going to get into it there, but, you know, I've been copied on all those emails, and there's no gray line between what Ed is communicating on our behalf. I don't understand how his emails could be interpreted any other way, with the sole exception of the $6,000 as it relates to the housing authority.
Housing,
Right.
yeah.
But he was very clear.
Yeah.
Everything else
Yeah.
is good, and you should utilize this first million to close last year's books.
Yep.
So.
And that included making the nursing staff whole as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
so unless that email somehow maybe just fell in the inbox and it wasn't seen.
I'll send another one.
Yeah.
Just resend it and send it to, copy 2 or 3 more people on it, maybe. Somebody will see it.
Copy the super.
Yeah, copy the
Well,
super.
lately, Bobby and I have been sending back and forth so frequently that, yeah, it could have been just. yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Excuse me. Okay. Where are we here?
Revenue expenditures.
Okay, revenue and expenses update, and we have, let's see what we have here now. So we have revenues through October 31st, is that correct? And expense through 12/2. So we are catching up a bit.
Yes.
More and more revenues are getting posted in here, which is good. Does anybody have any thoughts and comments on what you have in front of you here? I think what we have, actually, the most recent thing, though, well, yeah, my copy's copied every other page, but that's okay. I saw it online, so it's fine.
Remind us about the gas and plumbing, why that's over.
The what?
Gas and plumbing
On the revenues?
on the expenses. It's 101.78%.
Oh, I did see that they've overexpended a little bit, so they're done for the year.
Which one is that, sorry, guys?
Gas and plumbing.
Under the
Gas and
Building?
plumbing expenses.
building inspector, yeah. Mhm. Okay. And just as we're doing, I know with FY '21, you know, we've had that whole issue with our cow power and all that kind of stuff. Are we able to avoid that situation this year of having to reconcile all that as the bills and credits come in? Are we able to do it simultaneous this year so that we don't have to have that big activity on reconciling all our cow power accounts? For FY '22, are we able to do that kind of simultaneously with?
We're just starting to do that, yes,
Okay.
so.
So that would be one thing that hopefully would be less onerous than it has been for us, okay? There was one other thing we had last meeting that, remember we saw something that was like $3,600 that should have been, there was an extra zero in there and I can't remember what it was. But yeah, anyway, if I find it, I'll mention it to you. So at this point, it looks like, and this is through essentially the end of November, the expenses for the general fund, total expenses are $8,106,874.51. And revenues for the general fund through the end of October, so it's a month off, are $8,541,959, sorry, $8,541,959.49. So with a month behind in revenue,
Yeah.
we are
Well, that sounds about right, don't we?
about 400 more positive, right, on.
We're on
we spent-
revenue than we are on
We're
expense.
more on revenue than we are on expenses, so that's a good sign, and we're a month behind on the revenue. Yeah, so I mean, we're
I
not
mean, that's the only
quite
thing
as
you
far
can
out in the woods
try
as
to
we
go
were
by to
before.
Figure out,
Yep.
Ed, is that $17,000 under the park gift fund? Is that the pickleball
No.
On what?
revenue, park expense gift fund, 17,000? Is that the pickleball donations?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh, okay, yeah. All right. Good. Did anybody else have any questions on either the revenue or the expense report?
No.
And I take it some of the things under the capital fund, some of the things at Norris that had been approved at previous town meeting, those have not happened yet. Some of the masonry repairs, the doors, the blinds, all of that are things that they're still,
Correct. They
Working
have
on-
done the blinds, they were reaching out to process that invoice today.
okay. Great, okay. Anything from anybody?
This is a little bit of the previous agenda item, but are we all on track with the CARES Act? Everything's going to be spent by the end of the month?
Should be, yes.
Okay. All right. If there's no more questions on that, let's keep on moving. Cost efficiencies, alternative committee discussions and appointments. Okay, we've done the appointments. We are now 8 people out of possible 12. I would like to recommend that we get moving on this, and I don't know, just to have an initial launch meeting before the end of December if we could, and I guess I don't know what's going to be more appropriate for people.
Do you,
Yeah.
do you want me to temporarily act as the clerk until we organize, and then set up like a survey monkey, send it out to the group
I was gonna
with
say
a
if
bunch of
it-
dates and
Yeah,
what
or
works,
a doodle
then
poll or something like that, yeah.
share that with you.
Sure.
You can make the selection. and
That would
then
be
we'll
great,
vote with
because my
everybody.
concern is whether I think we could do a Zoom meeting rather than in-person meeting, but whether we did it in the afternoon or an evening is kind of
Yep.
hit or miss. I'd originally thought afternoon, but that may not accommodate everybody. So, yeah, if you would not mind doing that, setting
I'll
up a
get that
little,
done by the end of the week
that-
and then share it
that'd
with
be
you by
great.
the weekend.
that'd be great. We can choose a couple options and see what kind of dates we have on that. That way we could get an initial launch meeting going. That would be perfect. And we're still more than willing to take anybody who's interested from the public. We still have our open slots for anybody who's got financial management and/or HR background. We are really looking for your input and your perspective and expertise. So please reach out to Ed if you have any interest in that. Okay, next one is the ARPA survey update. I actually am getting very close here. I just want to point out the couple things that changed from the last meeting. Question 1 and 2 are the same, 3 is the
Could I,
same. Yes, I'm sorry.
Could I actually ask a question about those?
Yes.
Right now, it says, I don't know if I have the most recent survey, actually. Let me just see. You said 1 and 2 are about the same, meaning about the ages, or the
1 and 2 are the
demographics?
same. The
Oh,
questions
okay,
didn't change.
okay, all right.
You should have version 3.
And that's in the packet, right? Okay, I have a lot of versions of this.
I put in the footer, you've got a version 3, 12.5.
Okay.
That's the one we're looking at. So the questions number 1 and 2
Oh,
are
I
the
see,
same.
yeah.
Questions 3 and 4 have not changed, 5 have not changed.
Can I just ask a question about, in what areas should we invest our ARPA money? Is that question 3? Because these aren't numbered.
Yes, that is question 3, and
Yeah.
select up to 4 items.
Do you think we should select less numbers? I
We
think we're
could.
going to have a very saturated response.
Okay.
If, I just want, further on down, you had, at the end, I think you said choose 3, I think?
Yeah,
Should we just lower it 1, just to be able to?
just keep it consistent,
Because
maybe with
actually,
3.
we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 responses. If they choose 4, it's going to be very saturated.
That's true, good point. So maybe down to 3 instead, yeah.
Should we split up water and sewer? Because we currently have public water, we don't have public sewer. I'm just asking, I'm not sure one way or another, I'm just wondering what you think.
oh, those two,
That's interesting.
yeah.
It would be telling, right, if all of a sudden, if it was overwhelming for sewer and it was by itself, that would send a message.
Yeah, we could break it out. Okay, I'll break that into two. The one, I think we started talking about it last week, I did add in the premium pay that I think I had missed on the last one. This is still under that number 3, in what area should we invest our ARPA money? Provide premium pay to first responders / workers during the COVID-19 emergency.
Oh, okay, so that wasn't updated.
I think it wasn't in my one from last week, I've put, it's in
Okay.
here now. But then the one we started talking about was this replace lost government revenue.
Yeah, I made a little note. What does that mean to the
Well,
voter?
that was when I started questioning
Yeah.
last week. It's one of those government things that's in their
Yeah.
guidance, but,
Are we aware of any loss we had?
well, given that we don't have a whole lot of, I mean, I think what's happening in other places, you know, they're able to provide reimbursement to certain things that, you know, we didn't, I don't know, we had estimated income.
Think of the meals tax.
Yeah, sorry. We had something that we didn't receive that we were
Yeah.
counting on, right? So something like that, and I don't think we don't have enough entities like that in town to make a real big difference. I was gonna suggest we might get rid of that question, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it's going to mean that much to the voters, and
I think it's gonna confuse people without a lot of explanation, so.
Okay,
My recommendation would be to replace lost government revenue out,
okay.
but then divide up water and sewer, so we still have the same number of possible responses.
and do you think choosing just 3 would?
3 is fine, yeah, I think that's a good point.
And then for me, on the, I guess it's the 5th question,
Mhm.
the impact of COVID on your household?
Right,
You're not stating what kind of impact, economic, because it gets to it when you
Yep.
get to the next question, that
Okay.
you're looking for economic impact, but you're not saying.
yeah.
So, I mean, people could interpret it differently if you don't specify
True, okay. So,
level of economic impact.
adding in the word economic impact.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, yep. And right above that, the one in between, if funds should be allowable for any of the following items, where else should we invest our money? Would you want to keep that at 3 as well? And
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
think.
that's
And
fine.
also, I think HVAC should be spelled out. I don't think everybody automatically knows what that is.
That's true.
Yeah.
And this one, we did put in an other to allow people to write in their comment if they wanted to. And then, so then the question after the one of the level of economic impact on your household, so this was a new question in here. Depending on your answer to the above question, please briefly describe at least one negative and/or one positive impact of COVID-19 at your household level. For example, I had to work from home, but my internet access is not stable.
Where are you reading?
It's a new question, so you don't have the right one in your,
Oh, that was,
you're in the package. You need
So I
to-
think there, just the first word, Chris,
okay.
Yep,
instead of depending, based. Based on your answer to the previous
based on,
question.
Yeah.
yep.
For instance,
I got it.
regardless if it's negative
So
or,
it's the top
Yeah.
of page 3.
Thanks.
Yep, sorry about that. Or-
Right, this is what was in the packet. Oh, right here, right? Nope.
Nope.
Help if there were
No,
no.
you got version 2.
Okay,
Okay.
what version am I supposed to have? 3?
Yeah, this is the question.
Okay, sorry, if you guys could share.
Okay.
Okay, so based on
answer-
your answer to the above,
Oh, okay, so it's just open-ended.
please briefly, this is a new question I put in version 3 that wasn't in version 2.
Okay.
Please briefly describe at least one negative and/or one positive impact of COVID at your household level. And I gave an example. I don't know, and that's just open-ended,
yeah,
just to see what people say. I don't know.
maybe limit it to 250 characters.
You can limit something like that.
Is that okay in a Survey Monkey to have a open-ended question like that?
Yep, and you can limit the characters.
Mhm.
Yep. And then, the next question, if it's had a negative impact on your household, what assistance do you need? Choose up to 3. That did not change. That was what it was.
So on that one, there should be a box that says not applicable. So you know whether or not they
Alright.
skipped it.
Not applicable.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, thank you. The next one, if you are an employer in Southampton, which I added based on last meeting, I just added the word in Southampton. And then I did add there, there's the three fully staffed, understaffed, and then other or not applicable to my situation, so, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And then we talked about adding more information about the kids. So do you have school-age children in your household? Yes, no, as the first question. And then if yes, and help me with these, this is new, these last two or three are,
Need to look at
well, this one's new. If yes, in the 2021 school year, how many children in your household are students in pre-K to sixth grade, grade 7 or 8, and grade 9 to 12?
Is that
So
going
what
to
we'd
be,
want them to do is fill in the number of kids. I gotta see how that designs in SurveyMonkey, but it may be a bigger box where they write in the number.
Yeah.
But I think that was what we were trying to get at, right? And I was including pre-K, not just kindergarten, right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. And then for parents of, and guardians of school-age students, students at Whitney Norris, recognizing the unique educational challenges COVID presented and the learning gap that followed, what assistance do you think would best benefit your student if funds were available? Select only two. And these were the full-time math interventionist, full-time reading interventionist, dedicated summer school sessions, a behavioral technician to assist students with social, emotional, behavioral needs, all of the above, or maybe other as well. Could add another. Let people write in something else.
I just don't like the word technician. If we're talking about behavioral, social, and emotional needs, it should be a behavioral
Specialist?
staff or person,
Staff person? Specialist, maybe?
specialist, yeah.
Okay. Yep, no problem. So that was that, and that was focusing on Norris kids in particular, and then we talked about, don't we need something similar for Hampshire Regional? So that's why that same question got repeated for Hampshire Regional, but I didn't have any other ideas about what the
You're going to use
choices
the same
were.
responses, or you're going to come up with other ones?
Well, I think based on tonight's meeting, if we
Yeah.
go back to the,
Lori's
if we go back to
notes, right?
Lauren's report, and the superintendent's report,
Yeah.
I think we can pick out 2 or 3 possible choices
Yes.
here.
Yep.
Just going back to the previous one.
Yep.
Do you want to say select only two and then all of the above? It seems contrary for a question.
It kind of does, doesn't it? Yeah, maybe all of the above doesn't belong there, but just put other instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, because under Hampshire Regional's principals report, number 1 and number 2,
Okay,
she's going to be anticipating looking for funding for an adjustment counselor
okay,
and a tier 2 interventionist teacher.
Okay.
Okay, well-
And we're assuming that people know what these are.
well, they won't, so we need to tell, what's a tier?
Unless you know that your child would benefit from it, then you know
Yeah.
what they are.
Yeah,
And you could do the classic other. But we could also ask for the layman's terms.
Okay.
yeah, we can get that translated into simpler language maybe. So basically, that's it. It would be 12 questions. Any further thoughts? I'd like to try and, I've got it in SurveyMonkey now, but it can still be tweaked.
I think you need to give some direction here.
Yep,
that
well,
People that don't have children in school should not be answering these questions. I don't know if you need to do that or not, because some people just keep going.
And
You
you
could
can
put a
usually
stop.
block it. If you don't answer that you have children, you don't get asked to.
Okay, then
Right.
it won't pop up?
Right.
Good.
Right.
Okay, that'll take care of it.
so do you have school-age children in your
You all set
household?
with this one?
And then it could be stop
If the answer is no.
if the
you're done.
answer is no.
Yeah,
And then
That's
it
all.
allows you have, good point. Yeah, thank you, that's a good point. So for some people, it could be that much, and then there'd be
Yes.
3 extra questions. Otherwise, so this is getting pretty close, but I'm certainly willing to take another round of thoughts from maybe just people sending me emails so I can tweak it, if that's okay.
Are we able to can you update the draft and send it out?
Sure, I can do that. And I would want to do a test. I would want to do a test before it went
Yeah,
live
yeah.
anyway. So this is my first play at SurveyMonkey, but it's
Well, did you do
Pretty
the
close.
survey for master plan?
PVPC managed it. So
Okay.
I've answered
That was
many of them.
very well done.
I've
That was
I've
very
managed
well
many of them, but no, they designed it with
Yeah.
master plan committee's help. But to actually put in the questions and choose how you want the answers to be, whether it's multiple choice or
Mm-hmm.
only one answer or some other weirdness.
I do have a question or recommendation is, you know, the ARPA funds are in the bank. We're hearing all these other articles about all these other towns that are deciding this, that, and everything else.
Yep.
2 years is very short in the life of municipalities, and I just feel like we should come up with a timetable for when the survey should go out, when the responses are due by.
Yep.
And really start earmarking funds. We already heard the water department say, boy, they'd be happy with even 10% of what
Right.
they're, you know, like, I really feel like we should really focus on how this money can
Sure.
best help the town, once we get feedback from residents.
Yep, I agree. I mean, I think, you know, with, with a little bit of tweaking and testing, certainly by our 21st meeting, this should be ready to go out.
Okay, good. I was kind of hoping
So-
it would go out by the first of the year.
Yeah, so I would like to try, I mean, I don't know that anybody's gonna look at anything over the holidays, but
Yeah.
at least it would be out there. And
Yeah.
probably, I don't know, my thought would be to have it out for the month of January. I mean, I don't know. What's anybody think, or a little bit longer?
I think getting it up by January seems reasonable, like you said.
Leave it open for, you know,
We're
5
pretty
to,
busy.
5 to 6 weeks, or 4 to 5 weeks, or for people to answer, to respond.
Well, how long did you leave the master plan survey open for?
That was a good, solid month.
Yeah.
Yeah, easily a month. Yeah, between 4 to 6 weeks, I think, on that one.
Yeah.
I think a month,
Yeah, so maybe,
but maybe we can come up with a timetable.
yeah. Okay, well, we can
That'd be great.
think about that for the next meeting, to propose a timetable. And my only other question was, like
Can I
we
ask
did,
one other question? Can we also survey like employees, the employees here too?
Sure.
I mean, this will go out to the employees of the town, right?
Yeah.
Also?
it'll be public for everybody,
Okay.
anybody, yeah. No, we just have to figure out I've got to figure out how it gets distributed. That's what, you know, we've got to send it out and put it out in a public way. So I got to double check on the
Yeah.
options on that. But yeah, it needs to be wide. I mean, citizens of the town, workers in town hall, everybody.
Yeah.
But my question was going to be, like we did for the master plan survey, we also had hard copies,
Mm.
because we knew that there were people that didn't have access to computers and wouldn't do this online. This certainly could be printed out and put in hard copy. I really don't know that I want to create another Dropbox for somebody to come and put it in our little box out in the middle of the parking lot somewhere, but just a thought about that, whether this should be also done.
I think so. I mean, I'm happy to help
Yeah.
compile results if it becomes
Yeah.
a problem. But we saw when people tried to sign up for vaccines online, elderly people,
Right, couldn't do it.
they couldn't do it.
And I think what happens, though, is that once you do have, say, handwritten results, then somebody's gotta enter
Enter
this
them into the
in,
system.
so that
Yeah,
the survey counts it all, right?
yeah.
So,
That's what I said.
so that's where a
I'd be
lot of
willing to
the,
help
you know,
with
the
that if you
ending
need it, all
work
right?
would be. But, okay, well, we'll finalize some of those thoughts
Okay.
next time around. But I got the idea about a timetable and method by which it's distributed. Okay? Great. I feel good about doing this. I mean, I think this needs to happen. I really would at least hope that we'd have some level of interest and input here to guide us along.
I agree.
All right, now. So, 2023 budget process and select board priorities. And I know, Ian, you're sitting here waiting for us. I'm sure you're waiting for your signatures. Do you want us to jump ahead, or? Yeah? You're okay? All right.
They're coming up next anyway.
You'll be after this, but, you know, if we can keep this, at least for an initial discussion. Ed and I had talked, we had shared the, I think, the budget process bylaw at the last meeting, and so we know we've got to get this done. And Ed, you can fill us in, and I don't know that you sent a draft around, but you've already worked on a draft of a letter to the departments, is that right?
Correct, and it's just waiting for, to add any priorities that the select board want to emphasize for this year, and Bradley's already working on the new templates to be sent out to the departments.
This would be an Excel sheet that,
Yes.
okay. And is it going to be, I know last year was because we were trying to do 2 different budgets, right? What you are currently, and then maybe an increase, or?
Yeah, basically, the first tab is for level funded plus contractual increases, and the tab 2 that's in there is for a limited number of would like to haves.
Okay. Is that something, would people want to see a draft of that before it goes out? Or shall we allow Ed to just go ahead and put it all together? Once we get our priorities, he's going to fill in the blanks in the letter with the
Yeah.
priorities? That sounds good? Everybody in
I've seen it
agreement?
before, so I'm happy with that.
Okay, that's fine. So with that, how about some thoughts about select board priorities for this coming budget year? I've got 2 or 3 in my head, but I'll let everybody else start. Anybody would like to?
Well, number one, I think that a lot of department heads that are non-contractual went directly to the voters. We raised up, or suggested that we raise up the lowest paid employees, which ended up being the ones below 10%. I think, being able to do something again on the salary line, maybe for non-contractual department heads, possibly. I saw that, was it Whately that hired that person?
Combination town planner,
Combination planner, grant.
conservation agent, something grant
Conservation
manager.
agent.
Yeah.
I mean, being able to do something like that would be fantastic. And there was of course, the schools got hit really bad last time. I think we should probably hope to do better on this process than we did last time, and when it came to the schools. So those are the things that come immediately to mind for me.
Okay. I would certainly, on the first one, I would phrase that as kind of continue with the pay or salary equity process that we had started.
I don't know if I'd use that word exactly. I would say something more like,
Yeah, that's right now. I mean, again, we'd be looking,
You want to identify the measurement we're going to use?
yeah,
I think we need to do that.
I
okay,
would just say continue to work towards salary improvements.
okay. Okay. Continue to work towards salary improvements. Okay.
Or salary implies that it's somebody who's
Continue to
salary as
work,
opposed to hourly, so maybe there's a more neutral word, I don't know.
continue to work towards competitive compensation
Wages, yeah.
packages,
Okay, competitive compensation.
packages, because it could be more than just wages.
Okay. All right. And Francine, your point of what would we use as the instrument
Yeah.
and recommendation?
Well, if we use, the Jacob study, looking at the scale, where we look at, current, mid, and max, identify where we would like to see, bring people up to at a minimum. Would we like to see everybody at the midpoint? At least that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that there's
Excuse me, why would you want to see everybody at the midpoint? Those salary scales are done for a reason. People start on grade 1 when they begin a new position. After X amount of years, they may get to a midpoint, and after Y amount of years, they may get to a high point.
I hear you with the criteria, yes, but we need to have a yardstick, but we also need some basis to make those decisions, which are performance reviews, I'm thinking, that would be coming from the department heads. We wouldn't be making decisions, I think, willy-nilly. They would have to come from somebody who has the knowledge about a person's performance to get them there. But, I mean, we have to have a threshold if we're talking about competitive compensation, that's.
Last time we voted as a board to accept salaries, a scale that we use to base the percentage below minimum.
And we use the Jacob study as our reference tool.
As a yardstick, that's all.
Okay, so you just want to clarify.
At the time, it had been presented by PQB.
Right. And we don't anticipate having anything else coming out of this other PVPC grant process that you guys have been working on?
No, I asked specifically for them to do a salary survey, and they said no.
Yeah, okay,
Really?
Yes.
okay, all right.
I mean, it may eventually come after the fact,
All
but
right.
not part of this.
So using the Jacob study as a reference point, continue to work toward competitive compensation packages.
Yeah, or any other instrument, but I think
Why don't we just
Well-
say that we're going to work with PQB to, I mean,
that's fine too.
Okay,
I think the main thing is we're just going to try to improve wages.
Okay,
Okay, that's fine, let's leave it at that, work with PBB.
okay, all right. Anybody? I'll throw out one. It sounds like we have something that we need to deal with this estate that has been put forth toward the town, the Parsons estate, that we need to think about moving forward with some kind of a plan for construction or some acquisition, something for a senior center based
Oh,
on,
is that the name of
based
it?
on the will. So whatever that is,
Yeah.
the senior center, I don't know if it's construction necessarily.
Design,
I anticipate-
design plan is what they have to have in 2 years.
Yeah, that's yes, absolutely.
Senior center
I anticipate the COA board will come to this committee.
I would
with
assume.
Possibly a building committee,
Okay.
an ad hoc building committee.
Okay, all right. But I think senior center design
Yeah.
plan, given that there's a time frame on that,
Yeah, April 2023.
yeah, so that needs to be, I think, personally, I think it needs to be a priority if it's
Yeah.
going to happen. Okay, anybody else? Other things?
Yeah, how about consolidation, improved efficiencies?
Yep.
Mhm.
Open to alternative ways to do things, not just continue to keep doing things the
Right.
same way year after year.
Right. And that comes back to
Encourage-
zero-based budgeting,
So,
but
and I
we're not
almost
gonna
think
do that.
encourage department heads to think outside the box.
Yep.
And that we would be receptive to what those thoughts are
Yep.
during the budget process.
With justification, with written
Well,
justification.
we'd be receptive, open
Yeah.
to it, and
Yeah.
not just gonna be closed-minded.
No, I
but-
think in terms of, the guidance, thinking outside the box is something that Ed can
You're
mention. But
basically
I think
asking-
a lot of, some of the department heads did a great job with a lot of narrative, trying to explain their rationale. And then others, didn't spend a lot of time, and it was kind of hard to understand some of that. So I think the more that they can give us some written narrative, that really helps to understand their thinking.
And the cost efficiencies committee will probably help refine some of that.
Yeah, if we get moving on it, hopefully. I had something else in my mind. What was it? Anybody else, Joy, thoughts, anything? Offhand, priorities for select board,
We're gonna say
budget-wise? Sorry.
bottom line, your total budget cannot increase by more than what percent? Are we gonna establish that? So that they know that they're working within some parameters? Or are we leaving it to, because we eventually end up getting there, and that's harder to, you ask people to give it to you, and then you take it away. Do you want to set any guidelines like that?
Did we put in that they could factor in a 2% COLA or anything last year? Was that in the guidance? No.
Yeah, the letter specifically says to leave your salaries at the current year's salary level, and that the select board and, I think it's,
Finance?
and finance would fill in that percentage at a later date.
Mhm.
Well, given that, I support COLAs.
But if we're asking people to think outside the box and maybe do things differently,
Uh-huh.
if we just said a number, they might realize savings in some way in order to spend it in others.
So you're not necessarily talking COLA, you're talking about their overall
I'm
department
talking about
budget?
overall
So just to,
departmental budget. If you want to spend it here, can you save it here?
Yeah.
I mean, not to exceed a certain percentage,
see.
that's all.
That's tough, though, because I think different
know,
departments
I
have
know.
different needs at different times.
Yeah.
I mean, look at our tree thing. We're basically zero heading into winter.
Yeah.
And 2 special town meetings, we increased funding for that. We have to have more funding for
Yep.
the tree warden. And that's not going to be a 2% increase.
No. No, because we're not talking about his salary, we're talking about the expense.
Yeah. I think 2 other things that come to my mind. One would be website upgrade, town website upgrade,
Yeah.
and some level of new financial software.
Yeah. It's a good start.
Yeah,
Is that good enough for now?
Did you want to say
I think
anything?
we're out of money already.
You want to add
We
anything?
were out of money before we started.
I know.
Covered everything.
I know.
I
But
do want
these
to
are
keep in
good.
mind, that I think the highway department, for example, I don't know if there were any other ones, but that one stuck in mind. their timeline of like, this is what we'll need by this year, and I thought that was really well laid out, and I want to see that from other departments, so that we can keep that in mind going forward every year when we are doing a budget.
So capital purchase, like fleet,
Yeah, and also making sure our library is funded, and the tree warden, like things that may go by the wayside, but that end up really being important.
okay. So, trying to, follow department equipment replacement schedules? Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
Equipment replacement.
Well,
whatever.
except I'm going to make this point. You're talking about an operating budget letter, and now you're talking about capital items.
Right.
Two
Okay.
different things.
Yeah, true. No, but I'm talking about select board priorities, though, so but maybe that,
But you're talking about putting those priorities into an operating budget request letter.
yeah, okay. No. Not
So
doing
what's
that.
the difference? This is my first budget, like, process.
Two different processes, operating budget, capital requests, totally separate.
But they're going parallel in the process.
They're going
We're
parallel.
working both.
Right.
Okay.
But
That one has to be a
now,
minimum
we're
of
talking about,
$5,000.
we're talking about the priority, the select board priorities to include in the operating
In just
budget
the
letter.
operating. Okay, so we're
Yep.
just talking about operating, not about capital.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. And so that, back on Reni's second one was this sort of, this idea of at least a part-time planner / conservation agent plus, whatever they were. That was that all-around person that Whately or somebody had suggested, which we saw in the paper.
Right, so just building, I mean, again, if we're doing, it is Christmas, so I guess we should do a wish list. But, one of the things I think needs to happen is, that, for the town to eliminate the PPPB board and hire a 15-hour HR specialist, a little higher than a generalist, but not necessarily a manager, and have them be a direct report to the town administrator to start increasing efficiencies. That costs money if we can come up with it. I think that would help in a lot of areas. But two, I hear, well, again, I think everybody here can make an argument that everything we've already said and that we're going to say have to be priorities, because everything's a priority. And so I guess in its basic, in my mind, and the basic concept is, how do we continue to either meet the current standard of the quality of life in Southampton to the residents and/or improve it? And that could be very broad, right? It touches on everything we've already talked about, but, I'll pick on the chief since he's here. He's not crying wolf at the podium. He keeps saying that eventually, he's not going to be able to staff the police department. We've got a fire chief that's already come in that has already said can't staff the ambulances.
So is that something, though, that would go in the sort of the budget letter in terms of our priorities, or is that something that would come out of our new committee?
I think it's almost like a philosophy. Our philosophy, our goal, our intent is to maintain the level of service, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but we want to enhance it, and every year we want to figure out a way to improve the quality of life to the residents in return for their tax dollars. And that means maintaining, at least for right now, the level of service across the board, whatever that might be.
Okay, we can state that.
I don't know how to, so I'm guessing this is like a cover letter.
Yeah,
Yes.
Letter of,
right.
Correct.
this is what the five,
Right.
no pun intended, the five great minds
Came
here kind of
All right.
are charging
Yeah,
folks with, right?
Right.
How
Yeah.
we-
Right,
how we
because I've already
envision
started the
town.
letter off with the gloom and doom predictions, so yes, now you can get into the happy gas. We want to add this.
And you're going to
this,
put
and
us in the fourth paragraph, so they stop reading by the time they get to ours.
Okay. One more for an even 8?
I just wanted to say I support what John just said about the personnel committee or the HR specialist.
Yeah, well, that should be the outcome of this
Yeah.
study that we're
Yeah.
in, is there should be a regionalized service that we should be able to purchase
Right,
à la carte.
yeah.
So hopefully that'll
yeah.
meet that.
I think removing it and having it be regional would be an excellent thing for HR, just because of the level of personal
Yes.
detail.
It would be great improvement.
So is that Do you want that as a priority for us, or?
I would say it's a priority.
Okay. Okay, well, I get 8 of them so far. Okay, good enough for now, Ed?
I think
That's
that's,
plenty, yeah.
Okay,
I
see?
was figuring about 4.
Yeah, I know.
We can keep going.
You let these minds go, I tell you. Gotta corral them somewhere here. All right, good. Plenty enough. All right, any other necessary business that can't wait until our next regular meeting on the 21st? Not aware of any in particular. Has anybody got anything offhand? No. All right, if not, let us go to some signatures and PCFs. We have first, a resignation for the part-time police officer Brianna Eckstadt, who has resigned apparently, unfortunately, given her schedule and other commitments. And then we have, let's take that one maybe separately. That's one.
I'll make a motion to approve, accept the resignation of Bree Eichstead.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
I believe
unanimous?
we did this one last time, Ed, because you looked to see what, you left the room to see what, if the dates would interfere. I thought we already
For-
assigned her as the additional 12 weeks because,
We did this one.
Yeah, but we did, I don't
Did it-
think we approved it for a signature.
okay, it wouldn't hurt to do it.
All right, then let's do these two together.
I'll make a motion to approve both assessor office staff, Janine Domina, admin assessor, additional 12 hours per week temporary, so 12 weeks. And then David Zagorski, temporary principal assessor, additional 12 weeks temporary.
Okay. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Both approved. Next one. This is Melissa Roberts Cote, is that how you pronounce her name? Cody? Okay, a leave of absence from the part-time dispatcher at the police department.
Approve.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So be it. And then firefighter as needed, a fire department part-time non-benefited Taylor Pascal.
Motion to approve.
Tyler,
I hear a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I think all the paperwork has been,
Yeah, I've got all the originals here for you to
I
sign.
was gonna say, yeah, now these are the ones, I just want to clarify, these all went through PQB last night, right? Because we don't have,
Okay,
okay.
good.
So those do have PQB signature on, okay, thank you.
I have a question on the next one. If there's already an established position as an admin assistant and the position is vacant, why do we have to have another PRF for it?
Anytime you're filling a new position or an existing position, you have to file the PRF before the PCF.
Really?
Because
I
the
didn't,
the PRF triggers the posting
Right.
to
okay.
make it open to all, and so,
Does an emergency require a PRF?
There is no emergency for a PRF, no,
Okay.
only a PCF.
So you can
Okay.
do an emergency PCF?
PCF,
For a resignation?
What's that?
Can you do an emergency PCF for a resignation?
yes,
Why would you do an emergency PCF for a resignation?
to appoint somebody.
To
To
fill
appoint
a
somebody
position.
to cover for
Temporarily.
2 weeks. If somebody resigned, the position is vacant, can you do an emergency to get somebody in there sooner for 2 weeks and then work on the interim if you
yeah,
have
but
to?
not on the person who resigned, yeah.
Right,
Correct,
not
but
on the
so-
person.
Resigned, you gotta- you're back to a PCF.
Okay, I'm talking about if there is a resignation, in order to fill
Yes.
it on an emergency
Yes.
basis, so
Yeah.
that there's no,
Yes. Yeah.
indefinite lapse of time without assistance,
Yeah.
can you do an emergency, you need a PCF for an emergency
You,
position?
If
Once the
if
person-
the PRF has been done and approved and it's been posted for 2 weeks,
and somebody applies, then you can do the emergency
Right.
2-week appointment to allow time to get to the PPPB board to get it voted on.
So it
So
should,
you would go
that
open
should have
for
been
2
the first
weeks.
thing immediately for a resignation, is fill out a PRF.
Correct, but I believe in this particular case, at least the discussion last night was, there was a bigger discussion had by the Oversight Authority that they may want to go in a different direction, which caused a delay.
Okay. Can I just suggest something, though? In the workroom, in the break room, there is a flow chart that's taped to the countertop that does not show that this is the way the forms are, the use of a PCF versus a PRF.
Yeah,
So I looked at it very specifically, and it does, what says a resignation, you do a PCF for the resignation,
Yep.
but then there's that assumption that the PCF is also could be used for an emergency replacement, but that's not true. Is that
that's what my
you're saying?
understanding was too, Francine.
Okay,
The whole point of it is to get someone in there ASAP.
But if it's into an existing position, it's not a new position.
right, it's not new, but
If somebody resigned and you want to fill it,
Right. That's the
have to
issue,
post it,
Chris.
Which requires a PRF to be approved by the PPPB, the
It's
Finance
to
Committee, and
prevent
the
the
Select
appointing
Board.
authority from handpicking
Okay.
the person.
okay.
okay,
All right, we
I
got it.
got you.
So we
Okay.
have two here.
Okay.
Take them together. Rini, you want to read those two for COA?
Sure, temporary admin assistance, PRF, part-time, non-benefited, and that is posting because of resignation. And then the PCF is for Mary Hatzapetro, temporary admin assistant, COA, part-time, non-benefited. I don't believe that was approved by
Right.
PQB yet,
So-
so I don't think we can do anything with that tonight.
No.
Didn't come up?
So,
But I
Right.
would like to,
we took both items up last night,
So, and what,
and we approved the PRF. We modified the summary posting that was submitted to us. We
Okay.
struck the third sentence in the first paragraph, and we added a sentence to the last paragraph, or made a new paragraph. What we struck was the isolation of the wages $15. We got rid of that. We've had issues
Okay,
before,
yeah.
right? Because there's a range. And then we added a sentence down at the end because of the conversation that this posting had to be posted for 10 business days before anything could be done.
okay, so,
And the department had indicated that that was fine as long as we agreed to meet by the second week of January. That it wasn't a conflict, it wasn't an issue for her.
okay, so the temporary
The po-
admin assistant PRF has been posted now.
We approved it last night.
You
I
approved it,
think
or, okay. I
the
think I
select
saw
board
it out
has
on
to
the,
approve to finish it, right?
yeah, I think I saw it on the bulletin board. Okay, so what you're saying is the one for the temporary admin assistant, part-time Mary Hatzapetro, we can't act on because that has not been dealt
Because it
with.
hasn't been publicly posted yet. That would be handpicking the replacement.
right. Okay, so, but I did put a motion for the PRF for the actual posting of the position.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take up the PRF. Could I have a second on that one?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the PRF for the temporary admin assistant COA? Part-time, non-benefited? Aye. Okay. All right, so we are not dealing with the next one, correct?
Correct.
Right, the PPPB sent it back to the department head with instructions.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and then we have two last ones, PRF for 2 certified police officers, police department, part-time, non-benefited. And a public safety, another PRF for a public safety communications dispatcher, police department, part-time, non-benefited.
And the PPP board approved both of those last night.
Okay?
I have a question about them, but I'll make a motion first to approve the 2 PRFs, 2 certified police officers, part-time non-benefited, and for the public safety communication dispatcher, part-time non-benefited.
I'll second it.
The question I had is, I think you mentioned during one of our meetings, possibly something about, I think on dispatcher, you said, how do you distinguish part-time and per diem, or is it basically the same?
It is the same, essentially.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
okay,
They'll get scheduled, or they'll be called in when somebody calls out sick.
okay.
So essentially, it is the same,
Okay, so this is pretty much the same.
yes.
They're not going to be on a regular schedule?
They're not on a
They're going to be
regular
just per
schedule.
diem? Okay, or, okay, thanks.
Mhm.
That's really the only question I had.
Yep, okay, great. All right, so we have a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay. The last, well, not the last, but almost the last. Okay, we have a,
Good night.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
night, Ian. Thank you.
All right, we have a whole bunch of licenses and permits, common victualler licenses and permits.
Chair, I have to excuse myself for the common victular
Yeah,
license and permits
Okay,
from the
but
room.
for one of them, right?
For one of them.
Yeah.
One of
So
them,
I don't
yes.
know if you're doing them at one
We'll
whole
separate 'em.
conversation, but
Just
yeah,
ab-
just
yeah, you
let
can
me
just
know.
abstain, yeah,
Okay.
we can do that, yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, we'll probably go down each, I don't know. You want to vote on the others though, right?
Oh, okay.
Are we-
Yeah.
Why don't
No.
what,
You can group them all except that one together.
Yeah, why don't we
And
do
vote
that?
on that one separately.
All right, so
to
we
make
can-
it- Make it easier.
Okay, so
I'll
this
make a
is,
motion then to approve all of the common victual licenses, including Bashista Orchards, Big Y World Class Market, Cumberland Farms, Dunkin' Donuts, or Dunkin', Good Eats To Go, Sheldon Ice Cream, Subway, Walgreens, and Shop and Save, provided all of the paperwork is complete.
and fees have been paid, yep. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on those? Paperwork's fine, Ed, on those, basically,
Yes, it is.
from it looks like it? Lots of paperwork for these guys, okay.
Yes. She was pulling her hair out the last few days getting
Yeah.
ready.
The one question that I have,
Uh-huh.
is there anybody missing from this list? Did anybody not renew?
On,
No.
on the common vic, no?
No, and actually, I think this is a first that they all, both on the common vic and usually on the alcohol, they get them in, but this is the first time for the first meeting in December that they all got their paperwork and their checks back for the common victualers.
What about the new place, Anytime Nutrition?
The what?
Or the new place?
Anytime nutrition?
Anytime nutrition.
That's the one right at the corner of Palmer Meadow Road and Route 10?
170 College
They sell
Highway.
like smoothies, right?
Yeah.
It's a new,
I think that smoothie would fall under a food permit from the Board of Health.
okay. So that might be
I don't know.
something different than this, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's worth asking.
Nutrition, yeah.
okay. But anyway, so we have this
I will
group.
find out.
Yeah, was there another question, John? or-
No, that was it.
That was it? Okay, so with that, get a motion and a second, could we have a vote, please? All those in favor of the establishments listed, with the exception of the one not mentioned?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank
And I'll
you.
make a motion to approve the last one, which is McKell's Coffee Company.
All right. Could I have a
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sandy.
I'm supposed to leave the room technically.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So we have a 4 and then an abstain, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. You may come back in. Okay, next we have a set of alcohol and other permits. This is alcohol and sometimes mixed in with common vic and entertainment.
So, question, is there any reason not to take these all as a package?
I don't think so. There were only a couple that I saw that had not put in their, the number of employees on their workman's comp.
That would be Westlake and Pure Foods, and I will make sure that
Yep.
Judy contacts them and gets that information and fills it in before the licenses actually get mailed out.
Right.
I'm relying on you, Ed, as town administrator. There's nothing in here that you would recommend us to vote against one particular one?
Absolutely
So we
not.
could take it all up
All
as
the
a package?
paperwork's in line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
No issues with any of the businesses.
Yep.
Right, so then I'll make a motion that we approve Camp John, Country Liquor Stores, Glendale Ridge Vineyard, Paisano's Restaurant and Pub, Pure Food, Smitty's Package Store, Southampton Beer and Wine, Southampton Country Club, Tin Can Alley Lounge, and Westlake Gourmet.
Okay. Could I have a second, please?
And I'm just gonna do this, you go ahead and second it, and then I'll do
I'll
what I
second
wanna
it.
do.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Ed?
Okay.
Discussion?
Camp John, alcohol, common victular, entertainment, and coin-op. County Liquor Store, alcohol. Glendale Ridge Vineyard, alcohol, common victular, entertainment. Paisano's Restaurant and Pub, alcohol, common victular, entertainment, coin-op, non-coin-op. Pure Food, alcohol, common victular. Smitty's Package Store, alcohol. Southampton Beer and Wine, alcohol. Southampton Country Club, alcohol, common victular, entertainment. Tin Can Alley, alcohol, common victular, entertainment. Coin Op, pool tables, bowling alley. And Westlake Gourmet, alcohol and common victular.
Okay.
Why is the pool tables listed separately? Doesn't
It's actually a separate
Paisanos have a pool table, or did they get rid of them?
license.
I thought at one point they had pool
They
tables.
do,
Paisanos too?
and they're listed on their application.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Check it
that
off.
should be added there, pool table.
Yes.
for Paisanos.
Well, does that come under coin op and non-coin op? Or are we just talking about it?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
So we're saying that Paisanos also needs pool table reference?
Yeah, should.
Okay. All right, so with that modification, all right, I think we are ready to take a vote. All those in favor of the list of establishments for their alcohol and other licenses?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'm hearing no abstentions and no negative votes. Everything passes. Thank you. Okay, we have,
Thank you.
yep, we have, so everybody, we've got a bunch of paperwork to sign tonight.
Oh, God, yes.
Before you all leave, so don't get too
Oh.
excited. Warrants, we have none tonight. Other documents, none. We have one set of minutes, I think, to approve.
Motion to approve Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, Board of Selectmen, regular scheduled meeting.
I have one correction.
Okay, let's have a second first. please.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep,
One
second, go ahead.
correction is spelling of Lindsay's first name on page 3. When we talk about Lindsay Sabadosa, it's Lindsay.
About where in the page?
It's towards the bottom, right above the signatures.
Oh, yeah. The last bullet before signatures.
Yes.
Uh,
And the last, next to the last line
Yeah,
in that
Lindsay,
section.
Lind.
What page?
Page
three.
Page
304.
3.
So page
Last-
3, last bullet, right before the signatures,
Oh, there's no signature, oh, maybe. I don't
right
know,
before
that
the
page.
signature category on the minutes.
I'm lost.
Page 3 of the minutes.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Lindsay's first name, just spelled wrong. Okay, anything else?
Okay.
Thank you for catching that. Anybody else? And I guess, just on the minutes to approve, I don't remember this. Did we ever approve, on the last page, it says here, a motion was made to approve minutes of August 31, and I said I found some misleading language, so the board tabled the minutes so you could review the tape. Did we ever redo those? If not, that may be, I mean, this may be just fine, but we need to just double check to see if we actually ever approved the August 31 minutes. I don't,
It
I believe
says
we
in the,
did, but-
yeah,
the
we might
line
have,
above it says it was approved.
okay. Where, up here? No, that was the motion,
The motion was, okay.
but then read the second part.
Yeah,
So,
I
anyway,
got you.
we did- it's probably fine, but it just struck me as a little odd there. But anyway, other than the correction with
never
Lindsay,
voted on.
Yes, I did bring, I now remember, I did bring that one back.
okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay, so, all those in favor of approving
Aye.
minutes? Aye, with the one correction.
I'm going to abstain just because I was absent and there's a quorum to approve them.
Okay, fine. So 4 approvals and Reni's abstaining. Okay, perfect. All right. So, pending items. Do we have any? We've talked about naming rights already. That came up under the other one, so that really isn't there. Old Town Hall, I think the only thing we had reached out to Hill and Associates to give us some cost estimates about a statement of work for some basic work, and they haven't really, have they come back with anything specific yet, or not yet, in terms of a cost estimate, or
No, they haven't.
not yet, for like doing a statement of work, okay? Nothing else yet on the charter building on Palmer Road, Clearwater Woodland Boundary, or anything more on the Green Community Grant that we have to pay attention to?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We got an email about the sidewalk thing. Are we all fine with the date on that? Sidewalk in front of the cemetery?
That was part of my TA report, we're waiting
Right,
for
right,
Mass.
drainage and all that, but
Right.
we're still
We're
fine
waiting on-
as far as the
We're
funding?
waiting on Mass DOT to
Okay,
approve it, and I think if we have to go out for an extension, I think Stan Tech would probably help us
with
Okay.
that.
write the justification
Okay.
for it. So I think we're probably okay on that. We don't We haven't gone there yet because nobody said that we should stop and not count on this at all, but
Exactly.
everything's kind of ready to roll if the permit would come through.
Gilliher's
but-
ready to go, it's just
Yeah.
dealing with Mass DOT again.
Waiting with the permit. Okay, so our next regular select board meeting will be December 21st, and we have a special town meeting on December 14th at 7 PM at Norris School. And do we want to set January meeting dates while we're here?
Yeah.
I was just looking at, it looks like it would be the 4th and the 18th, I think. If
4th
we're
and the
sticking with
18th.
our current calendar.
Right, to stay on schedule. The last meeting is the 21st of December, so January 4 and January 18?
Yes.
Okay, there we
Do
go.
we have any additional executive session in the next couple of weeks?
Would there be another one for executive session with dispatch or anything
Would
yet?
it be on the 21st?
Well, our normal week would be the 14th for that, so what I would like to ask the select board is if we can sneak one executive session in at the end of the meeting on the 21st.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
Okay.
or sometime, yeah, okay.
I'm going to have to wait and see what the situation in town is about that meeting, though. I'll let you know.
Okay. All right, so with that, yes, John?
So are we going to also post for a meeting on the 14th?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
are.
have to
Okay.
post for that.
For 6 PM, I got to make sure that we can get the library, though.
Yeah.
That will be the only,
The library at the school?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the meeting on the 14th, we are going to, topic is?
Well, we would convene at 5:59
Yeah,
Right.
and then take a recess, and assuming the article passes,
come back,
then we would
Come back.
convene just to
Resume
vote
our
to
meeting.
okay,
approve the,
Yep.
I don't know,
yeah, okay.
do something,
That's it.
take some action.
Do something.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. All right, with that in mind, yep.
Would my assumption be correct that what will be read in will be an amended motion for that article, and then instead of $35,000, the amount would be $30,000?
Right, with the new offer that we have, the new possible bid. that we-
Insurance offer.
Interest offer?
I know we can't say up to,
No,
No,
you cannot.
so we,
but
But I
that's,
I just want to state now that what should be read in for that article, if that is
right,
what our intention
Right.
is different from what is in that
right.
STM warrant. So
I-
I will write
Would leave
that
it-
up for whoever's
would leave
reading
it
the
there,
motion.
Yeah, I would say we would put in the,
Yeah.
Well, we are having a sidebar to leave it at the 35, but I guess my
but you
the
can't.
only
do it-
reason why I wouldn't want to do it
can't
is
do it
if
up to.
at some time between now and then, you came back and said, those were, one of those groups had the worst references in the entire world. and
Oh,
I-
gotcha. Okay.
So if everything is satisfied, I'm comfortable with it.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, assuming the references check out, I'd favor putting in the 30 rather than the
Yeah.
35.
Okay. I just wanted to bring it up now, so.
Yes, that's the offer we were given, let's stick with it.
I'll make a motion to
$200 worth of
adjourn.
work, I mean,
I'll second that motion.
okay, was that an,
Adjourn.
adjourned? Okay, yes, thank you very much. I'm glad everybody took that. We are adjourned at 10 PM. All right, guys,
Wanted to keep it nice and even.
thank you very much, people.
Chris, here's all the PPPs to sign.
Oh, perfect, yeah, so we got some signatures to do here, lordy.
You just do those, right?
I got these ones, but you guys start on something else, yep.
Oh, I got all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And I should put,
John's got a pile.